Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Season Dose, episodes 36 through 40. I have gone on to spend some time away from doing Power Rangers analysis. I've kind of been more consistent going back into it. There are some things that I'd gone on and left off from the last time that I've reviewed Power Rangers that I probably need to a little bit explain. This, of course, is to go on and be as a series review, and also I am to, at certain points in this series review, when certain Power Ranger characters are to leave said show, at certain points I do Best Ranger, Worst Ranger, and when season ends I do the same. Also, there is to go on and be a top 10 list that has episodes and story arcs used up as one slot. I am to, of course, go on and recap that top 10 within this specific video because it has been some time since doing certain other videos. It may have been a long time since me talking about the top 10, so I think I'll just go on and recap that as quickly as I can within after I talk about each one of these episodes that I'm going to cover specifically in this review. So let's go on and let's talk about these episodes. Firstly, I have to go on and say that within these episodes, I really liked what they did with Aisha here. If they were going on in that other episode with the fire safety thing and having Aisha kind of a good focus there, and yeah, like she's kind of an annoyance of a character there, but if anything, I think they use her better here. Aisha at certain points fighting alongside uh, Tommy facing off against Goldar in these episodes, as well as also just getting Aisha kind of in the better of mix of better showcasing compared to certain other Rangers is kind of a nice thing to just go on and see here. But anyways, let's go on and let's talk about these episodes. So, the first episode is to be called The Great Bukala Escape. Bukala? Yeah, at certain points within Power Rangers, with also Super Sentai, we start to see that there are some strange names that just occur. Plus, also, I guess, with there being an alien that crash lands on Earth, we can't just have this alien to just be called Jim now, can we? But anyways, this episode goes on and gives us an alien that crash lands and makes us also to remember a lot of other future stuff that happens also if we are to be a fan of the series, reminding us of like Tray of Triforias, Phantom Rangers, Andros, for those of you that of course are to really know a lot about other seasons and so on and so forth. And go on and just be the possible start of an alien crashing occur. Unless there's probably something that kind of slips my mind here. So, and also Alien Rangers, of course, yes, Aquitar, and yeah, that slipped my mind. Anyways, we would come to find that Bukala reminds me very much of Larigo from the Turbo film. Bukala is to seemingly have like a learning of English, and eventually will slowly but surely start to make Billy his bestest of friend. We'll go on and at one point have them try to put in snow within this episode because snow seems to be a rare occurrence that happens in Angel Grove. But eventually we'll go on within Zeo and have at one point where Tommy is to get his certain specific letter that leads him off to go skiing to end up meeting with this woman. So yeah, so at some point, snow does happen on this show. But then again, like I guess this is the real first occurrence of it happening to appear upon said show, I guess. It's debut of snow, I don't know. But anyways, you can correct me in the comments below. Anyways, Bukala goes on and is to crash land onto Earth. Zed will come to find that Bukala upon his ship has this diamond that he is to want to use for his own means for Serpentera, hoping that if he takes this diamond, uses it for Serpentera, that he can make Serpentera invincible. And so once the Power Rangers go on and find that's what's going on between both Bukala and Zed, the Power Rangers come up with a scheme to try and figure out how to stop Zed from getting said diamond, and eventually giving us title of what this episode is, which is to be The Great Bukala Escape. Weirdly enough, after Bukala goes on and escapes, Zed is like, well, wait a minute. I want to go on and make Bukala the bad guy in this story, but it's a little bit too late. So, they also had Weldo monster in here that they just kind of quickly take care of. And then eventually Bukala becomes the more bad guy here. So yeah, so obviously some problems are to occur within this episode, but feasibly also, I did like the whole alien and alien crash landing thing, because it also just reminds me of so many other good things that are to eventually follow in my brain noggin. So nextly, we then go on and have Forever Friends. This episode was great. Kind of feels very soap opera-ish, but still. We have Kimberly that is going on and having a gymnastic competition, and she is to find out that a rival of hers is to actually be Aisha's friend named Shauna. Oh my god, not only is Shauna just an attractive woman, but then on top of that, I'm like, Power Rangers, you need to do whatever you need to do. Get out the Megazord, whip out the power cannon. Shauna needs to be saved at all costs. And I know what Aisha would go on to be saying here. What about Kimberly? Kimberly gets replaced by a cat, Aisha. A cat. Plus, also, I can never forgive Kimberly how she is to go on and seemingly be written off of the show. So, Rangers, you need to focus on the protection of Shauna and Shauna alone. But yeah, this story was to have so many writing things that I was so pleased about. They definitely took the time to really try to, like, when Kimberly goes on to Aisha specifically and says, like, hey, Shauna's fine, she's been teleported out. I'm like, yeah, that was great storytelling. We also go on and have Aisha just worried about her friends, telling Zora, like, what about my friends? What about that? Aren't we going to help them? And Tommy's like, well, yeah, I'll go and I'll save them. And Aisha's like, well, yeah, Tommy, save my friends. And Tommy's like, I will save them. And it's like, that, like, kind of just dialogue going on, right? Yeah, that was, I want to laugh, but then also I was like, yeah, cool. This was a great episode. This will probably not go on into the top 10, but god dang, it should be. This was a good episode. I really like it. If you are to go on and besmirch and hate all these episodes, I hope that you go on, you like this one. I honestly liked also the Monster Jaws of Destruction. It gave me a knockoff of King Sphinx. It has those weird goofy saws upon it, but I liked this monster. I really did. Yeah, we still go on and we still are forcingly getting the monster in one thing and the Rangers in the other, and it's because of the Dire Ranger thing. Yeah, we have to force to realize that this show needs to come in to do original footage. And they do that. They do that in spades within these episodes. So I can applaud them for getting to that at some point here. But I'm gonna groan until we stop that from happening. Of the separate places for separate monster and rangers. But anyway, great episode, should be in the top 10, but it's not. There's so many good episodes. There's some probable wiggle room there of certain episodes that I want to quickly write off as humanly possible, because I know that there's other stuff eventually coming after this that'll be really good. That has the returning of the Green Ranger, has the Rita and Zed wedding. There's a lot of good stuff that's still to come from this season. So, if anyways, definitely check this episode out. You need to. It's great. So, following up with that, with the real fish story, Rocky goes on and he lives his Baywatch dream. I'll be ready. I'll be ready. Yeah, we have Rocky who's going on and he's being a lifeguard. We have a kid named Doug who has a girl next to him that he goes on and complains to that there's monsters in the lake. We go on and we even have Rocky that tries to convince Dougie otherwise. Dude, I've been living here for all of my life and never has monsters occurred inside the lake. If anything, you should probably be more worried about bears, Dougie. But if anything, your suspicions of being afraid of the lake could be sound. If anything, I've gone on to see Jaws in my life. So if anything, yeah, anything could happen, Dougie. It's okay that you have this fear. If anything, also, Billy will come into this episode and be like, yeah, like, I had a fear of the water too. So Dougie's fear is sound. Yeah. And then the sad part of this is we have Goofish and we have Slippery Shark. They come back here and there is not one iota of either Tommy or Billy going on and bringing up episodes of the past. For how these people love to go on and bring up episodes of the past, now would have been the perfect time. But no. Heaven forbid we go on and we do that here. No, we don't have the time. No. That would have been great. That would have been nice to really have Goofish and Billy having a bit of tangle here. And Tommy, like, fights Slippery Shark, but, like, there is not that, like, connection there of them past fighting. Just, So, we get the Slippery Shark, we get the Goofish, we get Commander Crayfish, but they call him Cruel Crayfish. What is up with the names in this thing? Like, we also have Slippery Shark that is to be called Shark Monster, and Piranha Head is just to be called Piranha. What the fuck? Whatever. So, Zed keeps whipping out these monsters like they owe him money. He's whipping out these monsters like dollar bills, y'all. And Zed is not through. He's gonna go on and make even another monster called the Tube Monster, because he keeps needing to throw out all these dollar bills, y'all. So we have Bulk and Skull, and they're in this inner tube, and then it disappears. We have a second where both Bulk and Skull are just obviously standing in shallow water, and then they fall into the water. I'm like, is nobody noticing this? This little bit of a goof or a geef? I get it, the inner tube has to disappear, but obviously Bulk and Skull are in this shallow water. and they're complaining about how far are we from shore? Who are we going to make it? They're in shallow water. They could stand up. Whatever. A real fish story for how I'm going to go on and make fun of it and complain about it. I always am to go on and say that I like episodes where there's a ton of monsters in one episode. It's jam-packed to the grills of fulfilling me with happiness with there being monsters and rangers fighting for how many slithers of episodes that we would have come past to have had monsters and rangers not in the same frame. This is like, oh God. I'm gonna pray. No, I'm satisfied. I'm happy. Keep this rolling, show. Anyways, we have next the two-parter Rangers Back in Time. We have the Rock of Time, everybody. Are you jazzed about the Rock of Time? I'm not. The Rock of Time makes our Rangers younger. And unlike Justin from Turbo, who eventually can morph from youngin to adultin, we have the Rangers that can't go on and go from child to adult Ranger. It does not happen that way. I'm sorry to say, there is a bit of thing of Rangers power coins that conflict with being able to have the Rangers morph. Sad to say. They end up explaining it at some point in the show why the Rangers can't morph. Because it has the power coins like connect with their molecular structure or something like that. Whereas in the later seasons, they've adjusted that to where we can have kids morph. So I guess that is the one thing that Billy eventually fixes when eventually he gets into other Morphin things. Anyways, so what if they would have gone on and feasibly in other seasons gone on to set something up and then had to have kind of really have written that up? Like, I'm kind of curious if there is to be an occurrence in the show where, because I've gone on and seen in Mighty Morphin so many writing mistakes. I'm curious if there ever was to be mistakes that happen beyond a Mighty Morphin where they do this writing thing and then they fudge it up later on. I'm kind of curious. Let me know in the comments below if there's anything besides Mighty Morphin, because Mighty Morphin has a lot of writing problems. Beyond Mighty Morphin, is there any episodes of anyone's mind where writing problems happen that they have to kind of course correct things? Because I have seen so many issues with Mighty Morphin so far. Anyways, so we have this two-parter here. And here is already a writing problem. So they are to turn back the hands of time. And we're seeing a younger version of Aisha, Adam, and Rocky in a school they should not be in. Obviously, we should be seeing young Jason, young Zach, and young Trini. But we don't. Because, if anything, Adam, Rocky, and Aisha should be in Stone Canyon, right? Should make sense. But they, I guess, didn't think of that, writers. Anyways, so we just have a weird timeline continuity error that's going on here. Also, within these episodes, we come to find that Jason, Zach, and Trini are weird, bizarre, forlorn lovers that have to go on and write the Rangers consistently these letters. that to me feels like the Jason, Trini, and Zach characters are just haunting me, and I don't like it. I'm starting to get a little irked about it. They didn't write them off very well. And then on top of that, they doubled down and they're doing this letter thing, and it's ticking me off. And it's nice to continue to remember those characters and for the show to write them in. But also, it's just like irksome to realize that these three characters are not going to come back, except for Jason eventually when Zeo Turbo movie and Beast Morpher, and then Zach in Once and Always, because he never comes back up until that point. Even Adam goes on and comes back numerous times after his time of Power Ranger. And then eventually Tommy, the endless the endless occurrences. But anyways, so also within the very first episode, we have at one point where Bulk, he goes on and he's like, well, hey, I have the Power Rangers and they're on film. Really? Me too! Which film, Bulk? I got most of it. Well, I don't have the show on the complete series, but I do have it in certain episodes. But if anyways, that's what streaming is for, or that's what finding an app is for. So anyways, that's how excited I am about continuing to talk about Rock of Time. I'd rather talk about anything else. So the first episode is mainly focused on, of course, the Rangers getting younger and them going on and eventually facing off still against the Putties and figuring out about the whole Z thing. And they have a dodgeball and they chuck it on the Putties, and yeah, so. And eventually we end up getting the to be continued, which I'm like, to be continued, my rumpus room. I'm going to be going on and watching the second parter. And so, but here's the thing here, folks. We have a very small club, and Alpha is to again join that club if Alpha hasn't gone on and done this in the past. Doing it again here. Alpha is to go on and be the one where when the Rangers are to no longer be in capacity of being able to save the world, Alpha is to go on and take down both Goldar and Monster, freeze them with weapons, and then go on and get the photos from Bulk and Skull, and then go on and free the Rangers, get them back to their rightful age, and then, of course, go on and have the Rangers do their thing. And so once the Rangers go on and face off against Photo Frame, or no, Photo Mare. I'm sorry, Photo Mare, my bad. I had to kind of look to make sure, because it's Photo Frame. I keep wanting to say Photo Frame here. They then have to go on and face off against the greatest warrior of all time. And I'm not talking about Goldar, I'm talking about the Rock of Time. They have to beat the Rock. And I'm not talking about Dwayne the Rock Johnson. No. The Rock of Time. So, not Grandfather Time. No. The Rock of Time. So, the Rangers all make their way to, of course, this rock. And all of a sudden, all these monsters just start to come out of the woodwork and face off against the Rangers. We have, this time around, a flytrap monster that I always mispronounce the first name of it, so believe me, it'll probably get ill-pronounced here. Invenusible flytrap. Whatever. It's the flytrap monster. Dramal, who, yeah, when Dramal was on the show, man, that monster was sweet. backtrack to go on and find Dramul's episodes, it'll be worth it because I think Dramul was really cool monster when I was seeing him originally. Then we get Oystermeister, which honestly should have been lumped into that other episode, but whatever. Oyster Monster is actually a pretty decent monster looking at it, but I can't for the life of me remember that episode whatsoever. I think that Oystermeister episode was God, I'm trying to think of what that episode actually was. Anyways, yeah, that one completely draws a blank. So now let's go on and let's get into the top 10 and let's get to the breakdown of these episodes. So the top 10, I'm not going to go into detail of any of these episodes of why I chose them and what. I'm just going to list them and then move on. So if anything, you can either go in to try to find the reviews of any number of these episodes once you find out the episode number of them, what season they're in, or what. Of course, they're in the second season, but what episode? Yeah. So Z-Waves, The Green Dream, The Wannabe Ranger, Green No More, The Song of Goddardo, Missing Green, Welcome to Venus Island, which I'm kind of shifting back and forth about that one because I think that immediately that'll end up getting bumped for when eventually I will go on and I will see the following episodes after this. Golar's Vice Versa, which I think that was a really good episode when like looking back on it, but if you honestly were to go on and tell me exactly if I remember this, I honestly don't. Of course, White Light, which is Tommy comes back as the White Ranger. That's obviously a given to be put on here. Zed's Monster Mash, Tommy facing off against a slew of monsters. With the fish episode, we go on, we realize that Tommy is taking on a number of monsters all on his own. And I really, in my mind, gripe about that, but then honestly, when looking at Zed's Monster Mash, I can say, oh yeah, like it makes actually a lot of sense that Tommy can go on and face off against 4 monsters at the same time and beat them because he's gone on to have to face off against a number of monsters all on his own and kind of keep his wits about him until the rest of them Rangers make their way back or make their way to where Tommy is so they can free him. So, for those of you that are probably going on and realizing that Tommy facing off against 4 monsters doesn't make sense, but we also have to showcase that Tommy is just as good as he is. But again, we also just have logic problems. But anyways, so, and then Friends Forever, honorable mention. It'll be on there forever. So, let's go on and let's get into talking about every one of these single individual episodes because I think it's about that time. This is going to go on and be as best as I can the full on breakdown of each one of these episodes. Thank you all for going on and watching this because I know you may go on and you may have either left well before this or to kind of realize that this may be the intermission or the time to leave. So that's completely okay. At the end of the day, I'm going to go on and have gotten a monster list or episode thing and be able to get all these details so I can try to get these I can try to get these episodes as best said as I can, but there is quite often some bit of times where I kind of question things or I just kind of don't quite exactly say everything of detail that I wanted to exactly correct. So I might paraphrase any number of things. So with that said, I'm actually going to pause here. I honestly just need, my mouth is just getting very cotton mouth right now. So I just need something to just kind of wet my whistle a little bit. So I'm going to pause here and I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. Yeah. In all honesty, let's do a little bit of behind the camera for a second here. Yeah. So honestly, I had already kind of done this. I had already been talking for 2 hours. And at one point, right as I was getting to like the last 2 episodes, this thing completely shut off. And when that happens, I tend to lose the entire video and have to start all over again. So if it's a bit of a struggle or a bit of a thing for me here to have to repeat every single thing that I've already said here, my apologies. But yeah, I'm going to do the best I can to realize that this is a technically first time of you hearing this and me doing this. So yeah, so I'm going to try my best to uh, go on and do this in a way that'll seem that I'm not just going to try and rush through this because I feel like I probably would. But anyways, so going into this first episode, the great Bukala escape. So the very beginning of this starts off with Aisha, Adam, and Billy, and they're going on and they're playing frisbee in the park. It is kind of interesting to see the passing of so many Power Rangers episodes because quite often we would just start to see these bashes of episodes. We'd see the Power Rangers start off either at the youth center, the high school, and even at some points the park. So it's kind of interesting to just kind of see this show consistently shift into these certain locations and start where it is. But also, I think it kind of also it depends on the episode. It depends on what the episode needs. So, yeah. We have these three rangers. They're throwing frisbee at the park, and it seems that they're starting to do quite a bit of that. We also had the pachinko head episode where, again, frisbee. So, while the three of these rangers, they're all playing the frisbee, we would, of course, go on and start seeing this very small alien ship that starts flying around. Small as in, like, the size of, like, when we first see Bukala, he is to be a doll size in a ship that is to be about the size of, like, maybe uh, belt to neck high. It's a very, like, very small, it's a very small ship. So, as this ship starts flying around, and Aisha is to be upset because this ship could have gone on and given her a haircut, we have Bulk and Skull, and they're off in the distance, and they're just having this chalk outline, and they're hoping that this chalk outline is going to attract either Power Rangers or UFOs, because if you think about it, we have that movie of Mel Gibson that is to be of signs, and they do crop circles. So I guess both Bulk and Skull are going on and trying to have that be something that they're doing within this episode. So we have the alien ship that goes on and flies by Bulk and Skull, and both Bulk and Skull to look up in the air, and Bulk whips out his camera and starts taking pictures. And he goes on, and here's where he says, "I got the Power Rangers on film." And I'm like, me too. Yeah, very ironic, very laughing way. So, and he goes on, like, "I have the film." And then eventually he goes on and says, "I have the filmaroonie," or whatever goofy thing that he says later. So, Zed is in Serpentera with Goldar. They're eventually going to go on and make their way to Earth, supposedly. Yeah, that. Zed goes on. We come to find out the more and more we realize, yeah, he says a lot of things and probably doesn't accomplish a lot of them. But if anything, yeah, Zed is going to keep on trying. So Zed goes on and states, yeah, that Alien is to have a diamond That shall be mine. So, because the diamond is of a power source, the diamond is to be within this alien's ship that we'll go on and see. So, Billy, Adam, and Aisha make their way to this ship after it has crashed into a tree. Adam is going to say, duck, and then he shucks and jives, and they have to just goofily duck here. So, as the three Rangers make their way to the extraterrestrial transport, and Adam turns to Billy, it's like, you couldn't have just said spaceship. You really couldn't have just said spaceship, Billy. Screw you, Billy! No, he didn't say screw you, but I wish he would have. Anyways, so Adam goes on and he touches the spaceship. Never touch a spaceship, Adam. Never. Not even if it looks really, really cool. No. So Adam goes on and he touches said spaceship. He's like, it's hot. What do you think, Adam? It's a spaceship. It needs to be hot. So Aisha goes on and looks at the kind of the windshield of the spaceship and realizes that she's looking at Bukala and it looks like a doll. And Billy realizes that there's a heartbeat there, that that they should go on and assume that this is to be a living being, and that they should try to take precautions to take this thing probably to the command center, because Zordon and Alpha will probably figure out or understand who or what this thing is. So they go on and they notice the diamond, and I'm trying to, for the life of me, like, I'm looking at this diamond, and then there's these like little these little pearls, or these little Christmas ball thingies that are inside this thing, and I'm really trying to think if this diamond is cool or not. I really think it is, but like, to me, I'm back and forthing. Really, it should be cool, but then again, so Aisha says it's beautiful. Billy whips out his communicator, calls Zordon. Zordon goes on and explains the situation of the crash landing of this alien ship. Zordon is like, well, that makes a lot of sense, because also Zed is making his way with Serpentera to land on Earth somewhere, so there must be connection between the two of these things. So, alright, so they're realizing that they need to go on and take this alien spacecraft and bring it with them to the command center. But again, they realize that it's still hot, so Billy goes on with his suggestion of, hey, there's a blanket over there, go on and grab it, put the spaceship on it, and we have Zed that is going on realizing that the Rangers are trying to take the ship with them. So Zed goes on and tells Golar to fire Serpentera's lasers, so that way they could stop the Rangers from going on and doing that. Unfortunately, the Serpentera's lasers do not go on and hit the Rangers, and of course, the Rangers are honestly under a tree anyways, so I didn't think that it would be able to go on and hit them. So the Rangers avoid the Serpentera blast, and they teleport out of there. Golar goes on and explains to Zed that there has to be another recharge of Serpentera. At this point, Zed is absolutely sick with the word being used of recharge and never wants to hear it again, because this guy is to go on and probably have a lesser and lesser vocabulary for how he hates to hear certain things. He hates fish, he hates recharge. This guy has to figure out a way to hate things. He just does. So we go on to have all the Rangers now at the command center. And Billy now goes on to say that it's a spacecraft. Wait a minute, Billy. Didn't you just say briefly before that it was an extraterrestrial transport? Now you're going on and simplifying it like, okay, yeah, guys, it's a spacecraft. Come on, Billy. At least, like, be consistent. So, Zordon goes on to explain to the Rangers that Zed has been chasing this spacecraft across the galaxy. Because, of course, this spacecraft is to have a rare diamond. That is to be of a lightning diamond. A lightning diamond, you say? Not as probably cool as the lightning collection now, is it? But still, it is to have some kind of importance. So, Goldar. Zordon goes on to explain if Zed goes on to get the diamond, he can give Serpentera seemingly unlimited power or be invincible. Which, of course, Tommy will go on to state, and it's like, well, that's definitely one headache that we don't need. So, they go on and they open up the ship. And they go on to explain that this character is to actually be Bukala. And they take Bukala out of the ship. And eventually Bukala is to appear as if to match the size of the Rangers. After Billy is to take the diamond off and give it to Bukala. Bukala disappears from the ship and reappears in front of them. And Bukala does not, of course, know English that well, but whenever someone is to go in and say something, Bukala is to repeat it, and then eventually the more and more people talk, eventually Bukala is to start to get to learn the language. So, Bukala is to be a universal traveler. And he was merely just trying to make it home. He wasn't E.T. phoning home. That's what he should have done. So, come to find out, Bukala is a very intelligent being. But I guess he doesn't quite know English all that well. Eventually he'll learn it. He probably is a fast learner. So, Billy goes on to tell Bukala, it's like, well, hey man, we're definitely going to go on. We're going to get you home. Like, maybe you'll get there before dinner, but if anything, I wouldn't press it. So Zordon is like, there is very little time. Zed will try to get the diamond as soon as Serpentera is recharged. So, here's where Aisha comes in here for those of you that are like, okay, where's the Aisha thing? What is he talking about Aisha for? Aisha comes up with the plan, the scheme of what they're going to try to do. Aisha goes on and says, like, well, hey, like, if Zed is so interested in getting to Bukala and this diamond, how about we go on, we fake both the diamond and we get a fake Bukala. That'll go on and get Zed off this guy's scent. And everybody's like, wow, that actually is a really great idea, Aisha. Wow, Aisha, you've impressed us this day. That's not what they said, but god dang it if they should have. They really should have been like, wow, Aisha, you've done something on the show. Because for how, like, it honestly, for Rocky, Aisha, and Adam, like, it still feels like a lot of things are resting on Tommy, Billy, and Kimberly still. To where when it seems that these other characters are actually really chiming in here, it kind of is like, ooh, wow, right, yeah. So what half the team, Aisha, Billy, and Adam, are going to go on to create the whole fake Bukala ship and everything between Diamond and what have you. And Kimberly, Tommy, and Kimberly and Tommy are going to go on and they're going to go kind of do their own thing. Oh, they're going to stay. They're going to stay at the command center, and they're just going to see if Zed's going to do anything. So Adam, Billy, and Aisha are not at Billy's laboratory, which I'm like, okay, why aren't they there? The location in which that they are at, I believe, is to actually be either Bulk or Skull's uncle's junkyard or something. There was an episode where both Bulk and Skull went on to try to open up Rita's space dumpster, and they use this location to uh, try to open up her space dumpster. And I guess they decided to use this same location again instead of Billy's laboratory for this specific episode. So Bukala is going on and praising the Rangers for everything that they're doing. Bukala is like, very good, your work. Okay, cool. So we have we have Tommy, and Tommy's going on and calling Aisha, letting her know about Alpha and Serpentera. So Tommy is kind of asking Aisha really like, well, hey, what is your guys' timetable? How close are you? So Aisha goes on and says they're very close now, and so Bukala even praises them for going on and like, yeah, your fake diamond looks like real diamond. So Bulk and Skull back at the chalk outline, and at this point, it looks like like just the scrambled mess of what they're doing with this chalk outline thing. And we have Bulk who's going on, and he's talking about signs and that this place will be crawling with UFOs soon, and also Power Rangers at the same simultaneous time. How is this going to be the thing? That is to definitively get like UFOs and Power Rangers. How is this going to be a magnet to draw these things to you? I'm very confused. But if anything, we just have to just let these things kind of play out in Bulk and Skull's mind. So Billy finally goes on and is to like realize like, hey, Bukala, like everything that we've kind of tried to replicate here, this is the best that we can do here. Like I think we're at a point where we just need to go on and we need to kind of play things out here. So Tommy then calls and Aisha answers, letting the gang know that Zed's approaching and he's locked onto your location. And so we'll meet you at the park. The next thing we see is a seemingly explosion. A bunch of boxes rumble, and Weldo appears. Your worst nightmare, Power Rangers. Yeah. When I'm quaking in my bed at night, I'm thinking of Waldo. Oh my god, Waldo! Or Weldo, not Waldo. Uh, Billy goes on and says, man, that's one mean welder. Yeah, yeah. mean looking. So some rough Weldo. Uh, anyways, pushing on here. So the Rangers are forced to morph here because they realize the threat in front of them. So Weldo goes on and blasts away, forcing the Rangers to then retreat as they go on and they scramble to get the fake ships, the fake crystals, or the fake diamonds, and the fake bukulas. So that way to go on and have this charade all play out. So they all scramble out of there. So Tommy, Kimberly, and Rocky are still at the command center. They look onto the viewing globe to find out uh, about Weldo, and that Weldo is quite upset because they've gotten away with the diamond, and so he's chasing after them. So here's, of course, where the Rangers all realize, hey, we need to act. They need our help. So it's Morphin time. So Kimberly, Tommy, and Rocky all appear here, and Billy, Rocky are to be holding on to the ship here. And so they go on and be like, yeah, like we're all set, we're all ready to go. So Weldo goes on and is to start to attack here. Come to find out, Weldo is to attack Bukala. Aisha goes on and warns Bukala of the blast to try to avoid it, to look out. Too late, Bukala ends up getting hit. Billy ends up getting so upset that Bukala had gotten attacked. Billy goes on and takes his blade blaster, whips out, blasts Weldo. After Weldo, it seems to be taken care of. We then realize that since the coast is clear, that they're to try to go on and need to do their plan. So Tommy goes on and tells Alpha to teleport Bukala to the command center. And Billy goes on and tells Bukala like what they're doing, that you'll be home soon, and that we'll meet you back here. And so he disappears. So we have Zed that goes on to tell Goldar to go to the ground himself to try to retrieve the diamond. So of course Goldar goes on and does so. So Aisha goes on and puts the fake Bukala into the ship, and this is when Goldar does appear. Goldar does go on and face off with the putties against the Rangers. And of course Goldar's like, hand over the Bukala's lightning diamond, or I shall destroy you all. Yeah, that's my impression of Goldar as best as I can. I think at one point I did have a better Goldar, but I think that's just my Goldar now. Anyways, we have the Rangers facing off against the Putties, and there is some interest. I think the only thing that I've seen here is kind of what Rocky does with his kicking is kind of interesting here. There may be going on at some points and seeing some Rangers just kind of chuck some putties in some of these fights, but like it's nothing that really isn't beyond like the common fighting of whatever. Like we don't really use the environment all that much, like, and I kind of like that because it at least kind of made the fights a little bit more different. Anyways, Golar starts to come into the fight and starts facing off uh, against Aisha's and Kimberly's and Rocky's, and eventually does go on and get the diamond. It's over, Rangers! I have it. So the Rangers are all in disbelief. Golar's a state that Serpentera will be invincible. We have the Rangers who are like, oh, he can't have the diamond. No. Golar's like, so long, power punks, and he teleports out. Like, oh my god, he's gone. They're all kind of. He fell for it. He fell for it, guys. He's out of here. So they go on and say, all right, like the putties are gone too. So now, since again the coast is clear, Goldar is to be focused with Zed on trying to use the diamond. Billy goes on and tells Alpha, hey, yeah, the coast is clear. Bring Bukala back. So Zed goes on and has Golar use the diamond. And we obviously have Zed who's on Cloud 9 here. He's to go on and be like, wow, like something we actually did succeeded at this time. Like, wow. Like now, use the power of the diamond to make Serpentera unstoppable. So Golar ends up putting the diamond into Serpentera. It seems to power up at first. Zed is going on like, I'm gonna bring the world to my knees. I don't know why I have to go on and every villain has to have that at the end. I guess that's just the way that villains have to talk in my brain. So Zordon has to reconfirm, I guess, to the viewer that Zed does have the fake diamond and that their plan is working perfectly. So the Rangers all go on and they're very lovey-dovey to Bukala, a guy that they met for a very short amount of time, but if anything, they go on and they say that they will miss him and so on and so forth. So we have Billy that goes on and is to just further just like, I won't forget you. And I you. And shortly thereafter that Bukala goes on and makes it snow. And Billy's like, yeah, it's snow. So all the Rangers are like, yeah, it's snowing, this is great. Even though it's gonna suck once it really comes down. So Bukala turns small, gets into a ship, and shuffles off this mortal coil. Again, see you is what, of course, Bukala says as he leaves. The Rangers are all waving goodbye. I'm sure with tears all in their eyes for Bukala leaving. The ship goes on and continues to make its way through the park, finding both Bulk and Skull with their weird, goofy Chaka line that is now way too big and all over the goddamn place. So, again, Bulk is to make a number of photos with his camera. And then he says, I got him on film, Rooney. Stupid. So, Zed goes on and tells Golar to target Angel Grove. This victory shall be glory, my crowning achievement. And then Goldar's like, we're losing power. It's the diamond. It's a fake. What? I've been tricked. How dare you, Pusky Power Rangers? Ah, so they go on and they find that Larago, Bukala. I said Larago on purpose, uh, not on accident. We find Bukala that is going through space, and they're like, well, he's too far away to try to track him down and get to him. Well, yeah, like, we're not going to be able to get the diamond away from him, so there's nothing we can do. Zed tells Golo to fire. Serpentera sparks. And Bukala at this point is getting away. So at this point, Zed just needs just something. Because he realizes that his plan has not been going well. So Zed is like, well, hey, since there's that doll of Bukala that's still there, I'm just going to turn doll Bukala into bad Bukala. So doll Bukala becomes bad Bukala, and Tommy goes on like, well, hey, we know that you're an imposter. Really, Tommy? What gave it away? That you've gone on to see other Bukala go into space? We know you're not the real Bukala. We know you're an imposter. Come on, Tommy. Don't be football Tommy. So Zed goes on and gets his growing grenade, chucks it out so that way bad Bukala becomes big Bukala. And of course we go on and we have the Rangers that are calling out for their Thunder Zords. Firebird, Thunderzord power, and so on and so forth. Griffin, Thunderzord power? Griffin's cool. There's probably a reason why I like that sword. If anything, yeah, Mystic Force has a Griffin in it. Yeah, that's cool. That's sweet. Anyways, pushing on. So, the Thunder Megazord becomes a thing. We, of course, as always, have the Rangers. They're in the green chest circular thing of like, yeah, Thunder Megazord, power ready or battle ready, or yeah, like, it's kind of funny because the subtitles in Tubi, it's kind of hit or miss. It's not perfect, but regardless, it's semi close. So Bukala goes on and does seemingly this attack. He goes on and opens its mouth and has this tongue of a thing that's tethering out, and it's to grab onto the Megazord. We've kind of seen this happen several other times with other monsters, but it's always interesting. It's always cool looking. But we always know what the strategy is to defeat this kind of thing. So the Thunder Megazord goes on and whips out its blade, its saber, its Thunder Saber, and slices through the tether, the tongue, whatever this black thing is that is to be going up all around of it. We then would, of course, have the Thunder Megazord, or the Thunder Saber power-up mode, and you get where this is going. Slice. Yep. Another monster which is now to be dubbed as Bad Bukala. Another one bites the dust. So we of course get the, as per usual, the Thunder Saber going back into the sheath to say, yeah, we've beaten another monster this day. It always is kind of interesting how the Megazords have always like these very repetitive moves that when you were to try to go on as yourself to try to replicate them when you actually have the Megazords, doesn't come off as cool. Because yeah, I think for the Megazord having that chain, like, yeah, the actual Megazord toy just has where the sword kind of clips onto the side, or clips on to like the Firebird, and you can't exactly just go on and just like have one hand grab the thing and yeah, like that. No, doesn't really look at cool. Doesn't really look at cool as cool at all. If anything, you have to go on. You have to slide the blade out, put it in then the Zord's hand, and then do whatever you're gonna do with it. But yeah, that's what kind of sucked about that Zord, because I actually owned it, as I am to know the things about it. If anything, also it was a pain for the Firebird to kind of keep its wing parts, because that was always my problem with it. Of like when I would go on and I would whip out the sword, I'd be worried the Firebird would either break its wings, or like the wings would just have problems uh, when you have to do something with it. For honestly, how that thing came about, that was like the weakest construction of that whole thing, was just the Firebird being right by the crotch, basically. Anyways, so after the defeating, we go to the youth center, and as obviously we go on and see that Tommy's doing, Adam, Tommy, and a number of Rangers are just kind of doing their thing in the youth center. We see that Tommy's bandana is not holding very well. It looks very wonky and very weird. So Kimberly and Aisha are making their way to the Rangers because they're going to be reading them off a letter from prior Rangers, Jason, Zach, and Trini. So as we go with the Casey Kasem way of doing things, Kimberly goes on and says, "Yeah, that we have we have a letter from Trini and the guys," and they write, "Hi guys, too much to tell. The people are the best part. No matter where they come from, we all have the same dreams. Wouldn't trade it for the world, but if anything, it would be nice if I could just get a cameo. Can I just come back? Just a little brief thing, a little. Come on." But they say, "But we miss you guys." Yeah. So, uh, there's still no place like home. What are they, freaking Dorothy or the Wizard of Oz? So they go on and they say, like, even if it is 10,000 light years away, what did that mean? What the heck are they talking about here? The Rangers are still at a peace conference, right? They should have said miles, not light years. Like, yeah, maybe Jason, Tree, and Zach are in space and they're Omega Rangers. Maybe that's the 10,000 light years away. I don't know. I was baffled by that. Maybe that was a line goof. Maybe it was 10,000 miles away. So Bulk and Skull go on and they bring everybody around to go on and state that they have photos to show everybody. Bulk and Skull whip the photos out to come to find that there is nothing of real true picture besides both Bulk and Skull themselves. And the further and further they dive through all these photos, they realize there's nothing there and they get upset and frustrated. And we would, of course, go on and have Rangers that go on to laugh against Bulk and Skull, and that ends up wrapping up the episode. The next episode, Forever Friends. Yeah! Still like this episode. So, we have Kimberly here, and she's going on and she's doing this floor routine without any mats, which I'm like, I don't know if that is to be quite safe or not. But regardless, we would go on to see people like Brendan Mejia, and he at certain points would go on and he would just do these flips, just seemingly anywhere. Yeah, at even certain points though, he does go on his YouTube videos and do flips with, of course, patting on it. But again, he also goes on in like any number of places and sometimes does flips. But whatever. Brennan has gone on to be a person that has uh, done stunts on Power Rangers in a number of different environments. So yeah, like logically, I'm sure the only person that would have to critique that is actually just Brennan himself. So, but again, also Brennan is a stunt man as well as also to have been a part of the show. So yeah, so pad, no pad, whatever. Anyways, pushing on. Aisha goes on and praises Kimberly for looking great, and yeah, she like Kimberly in this episode looks in amazing shape. She really does. And but also like Aisha isn't all that bad looking either. But anyways, so Aisha goes on and talks to Kimberly. It's like, yeah, like you are going on, you're doing this gymnastic competition, but if anything, I also have another friend that you're gonna have to go up against. So yeah, you're probably gonna have to meet her really soon. And that person ends up being none other than Shauna. Yeah, delicious Shauna. So Kimberly goes on, I'm like, well, yeah, I can't wait to meet her. Yeah, sure. So Shauna goes on and starts talking with Aisha and Kimberly. And Shauna, of course, has to bring up the fact it's like, well, hey, yeah, like you left me and you transferred to this other school. And Aisha's like, well, hey, there's nothing I can do about that. Like, me and my family, we moved to Angel Grove. Like, I'm sorry, but yeah. So Shauna is just butthurt for the fact, like, hey, you don't call, you don't write. I thought we were friends. Anyways, so we go on to have Kimberly that goes on to mention to Shauna, it's like, well, hey, yeah, like it seems that the two of us are going to end up trying to go and be in a competition together for the district title, right? Like you, me, like we're going to have to just duke it out here, right? And Shauna's like, well, I think we're going to be competing for a little bit more than that. Ooh, nice. So we have this friendship triangle that's going on here, and obviously there's going to be some real tough ties between the lot of them. But eventually, once Shauna gets in a little danger and is to be kidnapped with Kimberly, stuff starts to change. They put their on pause and they realize that maybe maybe we can go on and be friends after this. So Zed is to go on and be, of course, at his palace. He is going on and freaking popcorning in a way. He's like, oh my god, Cola, are you watching this? Like, yeah, you see that like, man, I just want the meow, get the claws out. Zed is going on to be like, yeah, with what's going on right now, like we need to take full advantage of this. We need to go on and definitely try to figure out a way to split the Rangers up. So that way we can eventually go on and make them useless to Zordon. We have to go on and try to really kidnap Kimberly and Shauna so that way we can go on to kind of divide and conquer here. So Kimberly again is going on and again practicing, and Aisha is to go on and praise Kimberly. Shauna interrupts and goes to make her way to Aisha. It's like, well, hey, it's good that I'm seeing you again. You just saw her a number of seconds ago. So Shauna goes on to say, it's like, well, so why don't you ever call? And so Aisha goes on to be like, well, yeah, I'm really busy, and Shauna's like, well, yeah, every time I call, you're never home. Never home, Aisha. What if I need you? So while Shauna and Aisha are bickering here, we have Kimberly that's like rolling her eyes so heavily, and she's like, do I seriously have to be in the camera here while they're bickering biddies behind me? Come on. Do I really need to stay here? Well, the pay is nice. All I need to just do is just stand here in front of the camera. So Kimberly backpedals, and she's like, well, maybe I should go on and meet with the guys, maybe give you guys some alone time, get you guys a bit of time to catch up here. Like, if anything, Shauna, it's nice to meet you. As Kimberly starts to leave, Aisha's like, well, you know what? Honestly, the three of us, maybe we'll have some time together where we can all get some time to talk and chill out at the park for a while. Like, maybe we just need Shauna to get to know Kimberly better, and for maybe them to kind of work things out, and that's not gonna go well. So we now get the dudes, and they're buffing some wood. They're at the wood shop. They're going on, and they're trying to, I assume, make a birdhouse. I don't know. Some of the stuff that these guys are trying to make doesn't come out all that good. But if anything, they're trying, right? The effort is the only thing that matters. So Tommy goes on and says, like, well, yeah, I hope that Kimberly's practice is going well. And they're all just like, yeah, I hope it's going way better than what we're trying to do here. Yeah, mine's not quite going what I expected either. So Bulk and Skull make their way into the wood shop, and there's an expectation of possibly that Bulk and Skull may actually go on and help the rest of these guys with their projects because it seems that they're struggling with it. But Bulk and Skull are not going to ever go on and help them. If anything, they're going to go on and showcase to the Rangers here that they've gone on to make jetpacks. They've gone on to do that because they've gone on to see the Power Rangers do this thing called jetting. Why is it that Bulk and Skull are to know exactly the term of which the Power Rangers are going on and doing? I don't know, but if anything, they know it anyways. Also, when we see jetting most of the time being used in these episodes, it does not look well. It honestly looks stupid. And that is a really sad thing that we've gone on to see Jason, Zach, and Trini, and they're not even who they are, and they're being voiced poorly. And on top of that, like, we actually get to see those people in the skies flying, but in these other later these episodes, we just see these action figures that are like flying in the air. It looks stupid. It just does. So Bulk and Skull go outside, and they are to try and turn on these jetpacks after putting these buckets over their heads. And it honestly looks like the backpacks are just these like massive fireworks that are strapped to these guys' backs. And they just run around, and then they crash into this hay, and they realize what a mistake this was, that they should have read the directions. So Transition to Aisha, Shauna, and Kimberly here. They're at this park, and there's a bunch of seemingly fruits and foods in front of them that none of them take a nibble or anything off of. I'm sure a lot of it's fake, anyways, because I'm sure that's probably what it is. So, Shauna and Aisha are bickering about the exact year of which that they had started to become friends. Second grade, first grade, either way, they have become friends for a very long time. As Kimberly is to go on and ask, like, well, how long have you guys been friends for? And obviously that length of time. When Aisha did not exactly remember how long they've been friends, Shauna calls her out on it. And Aisha's like, well, yeah, we've still been friends for a very long time. And Shauna's like, well, maybe not that long enough. Zed goes on and is to be like, all right, I've enjoyed my popcorn time and I've enjoyed this cat squirrel, but I think it's about time to go on and finally capture the Pink Ranger and Shauna. I also don't know what it is that Zed needs to try to keep capturing the Pink Ranger for. Yeah, trying to capture her before to try to make her Rita. Didn't come out. Didn't work well. But also I think that Zed just has this weird thing for Pink Rangers. He goes on and also later tries to capture Cat. And that of course doesn't pan out, but still he tries to capture her. He tries to kidnap her. Zed just must like Pink Rangers. That must be his jam. But also, he kidnaps Shauna. That obviously that was a good choice, Zed. That was a good choice. Obviously, I wouldn't want to see the harm of Shauna, but still, it happens. Uh, so Zed goes on and tells Goldar, come down there, grab Kimberly and Shauna. So Goldar makes his way down, and Shauna, Kimberly, and Aisha make their way to the opposite end of the table. Goldar goes on and sucks Kimberly and Shauna and then disappears. Aisha is to go on and try to call any of the other rangers, but realizes that they're at the wood shop and there's no way for her to be able to get them onto the comms. So she has to physically make her way to the wood shop class so she can go on and try to make her way into telling the Rangers what had all happened, for them to go with her to the command center so they can try to figure out what's going to be the next steps of what to do here. Zed seems to be pleased about the progress of where things are going. He's starting to say that the disintegration of the Power Rangers is starting to begin, and let's see what he can do with all the other Rangers. So, Aisha goes on and makes her way to the wood shop, explains that Kimberly and Shauna, her best friend, have both been kidnapped, or technically both of her best friends have gotten kidnapped now. And they, of course, quickly realize, hey, we need to go to the command center. Zed goes on and realizes that since no one is to go on and seemingly blame Aisha for what had happened, that Zed is going to go on to just like, well, like, I guess I'll go on and just make another monster and realize that it seems it won't be so easy for this team to just break away. So, Zed goes on and sees a saw in the background, and that's where he makes the jaws of destruction. Kimberly and Shauna are to be left at a prison of a cave where we just have these odd amount of just these weird looking uh like sharp objects that are kind of color coded in some manner of like one's pink, green, yellow, just a hodgepodging of just what the is this as far as it looks. So Kimberly and Shauna, they're in this cell and they try to leave it and they realize that there's a barrier there. Shauna is to go on to be very scared, and it seems that Kimberly is not. Kimberly is to kind of be more assured to Shauna that they will go on and find a way out of here. Shauna is weirded out by why Kimberly is to be so calm. And is to be like, wow, I'm really impressed. If anything, like, I was to really be actually really bad to you, Kimberly, but now I'm realizing how like different you are from me in this situation, and I can just really just realize how rotten I've been. So Kimberly goes on and turns to Shauna and say, you know what? Like, when I see that you have lost Aisha and she's kind of moved away from you, this goes on and honestly reminds me of my parents' divorce. And Kimberly goes on and mentions her parents' divorce and how her father has kind of moved on and like connects with her in that way. And it's really nice for Kimberly to go back to the whole divorce thing because it's been so long since there's any kind of iota of them talking about that whatsoever. As well as also just like it's nice that there's parts of these episodes where they do remind or they do remember past things of occurrence because a lot of time there is so many story problems with this show that it becomes ridiculous how there's like no continuity, there's so many problems, and this here is like wow, they actually are really keeping a way better story thing going on of remembering the past as well as also having this to be written very well compared to so many things that we've seen. So we have Aisha going on telling Zordon, Zordon, what can we do? Goldar has kidnapped my best friends, and I feel like I failed as a Power Ranger. No one blames you, Aisha. No one? No one, Zordon? Aisha, I blame you. But I only do it for comedic reasons because I have to. But god dang it, Aisha. You should have saved your friends. You should have just morphed right then and there to save them, but you didn't. It's gonna haunt you for the rest of your life, Aisha. It won't. They'll come out unscathed. They'll be fine. But still. Zordon goes on to tell the Rangers, it's like, well, hey, with times like these, you have to remain strong. Keep strong. So, we have Zordon that is to go on and tell the Rangers here that the more focus here is them going up against this monster known as the Jaws of Destruction. They turn to the viewing globe, they showcase this monster, and we would, of course, have Zordon stating that this is the focus, but then Aisha is like, well, wait, what about Shauna and Kimberly? We can't just leave them there. And Tommy then is to grab the shoulders of Aisha. They're like, I'll get them, Aisha. Aisha turns to Tommy. It's like, save them, Tommy. And Tommy's like, I will. just, just, it's funny, but also it's so good. You guys go after the dolls of destruction. It's Morphin time, everybody. Everybody morphs. Then we get this stupid, goofy jetting. Volca and Skull notice the Rangers doing their jetting, and they're like, yeah, let's go after them. And they start jetting. They fireworks off, and just, they go nowhere. Looks stupid. So, the Rangers go on, and they land. And, of course, this is again another time where Monster and Rangers are in separate areas. The putties are also to be there to stop the Rangers in their tracks. We have a point where Rocky goes on and mentions about this whole, like, the enemy of my enemy thing, where he's like, any friend of yours is an enemy of mine. So, we go and have the Jaws of Destruction, like, okay, putties, cut them down to size. Here's where we go on, we have the putties, and they're going on, and they're getting a lot closer to the camera as we start to see. Where Aisha goes on and, like, chucks the putty, I think, into the camera. That might have been a mistake, but maybe it was a thing that they were planning on doing. I'm not quite sure. We see Adam and Billy going on and facing off against these monsters as well. We then go on to see that the monster does this chop-chop attack. We see at some point that Billy is facing off against some putties. Adam goes on and chucks a putty. Billy goes on and does this flip. We have Rocky that goes on like, okay, let's nail this monster. Thumbs up. Billy goes on and thumbs up him as well. What is up with the thumbs up things? We're seeing this a lot in this episode. Aisha goes on and is to see Shauna off in the distance, and she's like, ah. Shauna's like, ah. Anyways, so, yeah. There's a lot of this in this episode. I think I've probably, in the past, complained about this. About the thumbs up thing. Like, for the time, I'm sure this thing meant something cool. But now I'm just like, it's goofy. I would rather have the Power Rangers do an Air 5 than, like, yeah, this one. I'll give you one of these. No. I'll give you the bird. Anyways, so we've gotten to a point where now Tommy is around this cave. And I honestly, by this point of the episode, have completely forgotten what Tommy was going to go into this cave for. Because Tommy is to go on and take out these putties all by himself, which we've seen him do countless times. Green, civilian, whichever. He always takes them out so easily. But then once Tommy goes in the cave, I'm like, what is Tommy going into the cave for? And I was like, oh, yeah, Shauna and Kimberly. It completely got lost on me. I'm like, why is Tommy just going randomly in a cave? Like, is he trying to find Golar, or is he trying to find the Jaws of Destruction in there? And it's like, no, wait, it's Shauna and Kimberly. I'm like, oh, yeah. Duh. So, Tommy goes into the cave, and Kimberly feels relieved as she touches her chest. Shauna, I look at her, and she's relieved also, and I'm kind of confused about that, because I'm like, shouldn't Shauna not know who Tommy probably is, but maybe she watched the telly and knows who Tommy's, well, Power Rangers are, so maybe she's also to have a sense of relief as well? Whatever. There could have been some kind of moment where Shauna could have had some reservation of, oh, is this the good guy? Like, Is he hero dude? Like, who is he? What? I've never seen a Power Ranger before. That's what Shauna could have said, but no, none of that. So Tommy goes on and tells the girls that he'll have him out in a minute. So quickly, Tommy is to get Shauna out of the force field. And Tommy goes on to call out because he wants Shauna to get teleported out of there. Shauna is to be like, wait a minute, wait, what? Like, I'm not leaving without Kimberly. Me and her have had this quick, fast bond between one another, and I want to see that she gets out of here okay. But it's like, no. It's completely fine. Just go on and just get teleported. Like, yeah, we definitely need you out of here so Kimberly can morph and then get out of the force field herself. So Shauna gets teleported. Kimberly breaks out of the force field and then leaves. So Zed at this point is kind of furious because, like, God dang it, man. Now I have no prisoners. Like, I don't have no Pink Ranger that I can try to kidnap again because he's out of my clutches. I can't turn into a Rita Repulsa. This sucks. Like, I'm just looking at Goldar and I'm just like, man, just like, why do you fail all the time, Goldar? You fail, fall, die trying. So Zed goes on. It's like, Goldar, how about at least you go on and you try to stop the Gold Ranger, or the Gold Ranger, the White Ranger. Like, at least try to do that. So Goldar, Gold Ranger, I got a little confused there. So when Tommy and Kimberly make it out of the cave, they're immediately to be stopped by Goldar. Tommy goes on and puts a good old shoulder to Kimberly. It's like, hey, go with the other Rangers. I'll deal with Goldar. Me and him, like, we just always have to have this titter tat between the two of us. We're to go on and just be just like Decker and Shiba, how eventually they'll go on and be in Samurai and have this consistent battle between the two of them. Whereas the fight between both Goldar and Tommy, I don't think in the best way gets actually resolved, but I wish there could have been that. If there ever was to go on and be one missing thing, it would honestly be that there's never going to have been that definitive, like, Tommy completely beats Goldar, because we eventually have Jason fight Goldar Maximus in Beast Morpher. Maximus, what the heck was that? What was Goldar Maximus? The show didn't explain it. It just, hey, there's a new Goldar in town. Another action figure to sell. Which I don't think they actually did. Did they? If they did, why? You could legit just have another Goldar and no one would know the difference between Goldar Maximus and regular Goldar. Plus, there's like 50 different Goldars at this point. Why would you need to make a Goldar Maximus action figure? I ask you. Moving on. So, we have Aisha. She has fallen down to the ground. Guys, I need help. Help, people. I'm not having a good time. I at him. Let me at him. Adam goes on and is fighting a putty, but it's like, oh, hand. Kimberly comes out of nowhere and saves Aisha, and then goes on and puts hand on shoulder to Aisha, and Kimberly goes on and tells Aisha that Shauna has been teleported out and she's fine. Again, good writing here. this episode should be everything that every single Power Ranger show should always be. Because it doesn't always happen that way. I don't care if it's like, well, it's only a 20-minute episode. What do you think they're going to do? Do this! Do stuff like this. I would be immediately won over by it. So, back to the fighting and the putty taking downing. So, after the Rangers have all taken down all the putties, which took way too freaking long, we now have the Rangers that are to be turning to the monster, and of course, guess what happens? Growing grenade, but chucking. The jaws of destruction are growing. And then, of course, the Rangers have to be calling for the Thunder Zordon. So, Zordan! Lion Thunder Zord power! Red Dragon Thunder Zord power! Yeah. The rigmarole, the whole collecting of the Zords getting together. We go on, and we, of course, have the Jaws of Destruction that goes on like, hey, get ready to be routed, Rangers! Yeah, routed. Yeah, deliciously routed. So, whatever. This is not sounding as cool as I thought it would be in my brain. So, the Megazord gets together. Of course, they go into every single time. Thunder Megazord, battle ready or power up or whatever they freaking do to call out of every goddamn time. There's, I think, some parts of me where I think Power Rangers always thinks that there's going to be a person that hasn't watched every single episode, or they assume that they're always going to get random new viewer. And so to go on and always say these things, or possibly to have the viewer being going on and be like, oh yeah, this is the point where they say the thing, they say that, or there's a lot of people that know that they're going to go on and say this stuff, so they themselves repeat it back to themselves while watching this. So like, oh yeah, he says the Lion, Thunder Zord, Megazord, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, because some people will also get to the point that they've watched these episodes so consistently that they will go on and know what they're all going to say because of this footage. And that also is kind of scary to watch. But then also, it's kind of cool for someone to like verbatim know this by heart. And watching somebody just rattle this off like it's nothing. It's like, man, that's the thing that you remember from this shit? Yeah. Like muscle memory, baby. It's like every time I watch this. So, for how many people would sometimes quite often watch these series way too often, or watch these certain series or certain seasons way too often, that they know them very well, but heaven forbid they probably haven't watched the whole series. They watched certain seasons, which is okay. However you like your Power Rangers, however you like your Power Rangers. So, the threat of Jaws of Destruction. I'll cut you into ribbons. I'll carve my initials. What are you waiting for? Let's fight. Let's fight. An engraved invitation. Gotta keep coming up with these puns here. So, I'm going to drill you full of steel. Where does that come from? Anyway, so as we have the Jaws of Destruction, and they have their blades here, we of course have the Thunder Megazord whipping out its Thunder Saber, and of course slices through the Jaws of Destruction, and then of course, or as of course we were to guess, shortly thereafter, after there seems to be some attacks that occur, Thunder Saber, cut slice. So Golar and Tommy are facing off here. We would of course have Tommy shellacking Goldar here. Sparks are flying, and so of course, Goldar say, "Until we meet again, Tommy." Next time, Goldar, next time. I'll point my finger up at you. The next thing we see is Goldar making its way back to Zed. Oh, Goldar. It seems the Rangers have slipped through my fingers yet again. Even the White Ranger has felt sorry for us at this point. Next time I will show those misfits no mercy! Zed, what are you waiting for? He's just like, my next check to clear. Anyways, so we're now at the youth center, and we come to find that Bulk and Skull are to rejoin with the rest of the Rangers here, and they are pretty bandaged up, even to the point to where their clothes have to be bandaged up. Little confused about that. Why are their clothes bandaged? Whatever. So, we have, of course, the Rangers that are going on and joking with Bulk and Skull that they must have ran into the Power Rangers, right? That's why they look the way they do. And Bulk and Skull both laugh. And Bulk and Skull again do the same old claim of like, well, you guys just wait until we find out who the Power Rangers really are. Yeah, I'm sure you're going to do that anytime now. It's going to, even when you do go on and you figure it out, you forget it. And so it's never going to happen. So now we cut to the reason why we're really here at the youth center. Kimberly and Shauna have to go on and they need to do their floor routine to eventually be judged and graded. And this is to be the downer of the episode. Because in my opinion, in all honesty, I wanted Shauna to win, but Shauna doesn't win. Because it honestly does not matter if Kimberly wins this or even if she ties. Because to me, I honestly think the real victory here would have been for Shauna to win. But that's just me. If I were to write this, that's where I would go. But I get it that you would probably have to focus on probably Kimberly winning, or somehow or another. But we're going to forget that Shauna exists after this episode, so that is what it is. Anyways. So, Kimberly goes on and first does her floor routine, and regardless of how amazing she looks, there are certain things of which that she's doing here. I'm like, God, she has amazing flexibility. But then also, when she does that split thing, I'm like, I hope she doesn't fart. That's what just pops in there. The stupidity of me is to be flying out. I apologize, Kimberly and Amy Jo Johnson. So, the next thing we see, of course, after Kimberly going on and doing her floor routine, we end up getting the judges 9.8, 10.0, 9.6. An overall score of 9.8. We have Aisha that goes on and makes her way to Kimberly and is still like, hey, I'm Switzerland, baby. Like, I'm going to hope that both of you go on and do well. I'm not going to have sides here. And Aisha goes on and thumbs up Shauna. It's like, yeah. So, Shauna goes on and she does her routine. And 9.9, 9.8, 9 points. No 10s? No 10s. So, afterwards, they come to find out that there is a tie here. That seemingly the only person that is really going to get the award here is probably just Aisha, because she's best friends with both of these people. So, Aisha goes on and tells both of the girls they were both terrific, and they were, respectively, but Shauna should have told one. True. So, we go on and we credit it out here. So we make our way onto the next episode, a real fish story. So that's why I was talking about fishes. So we have Rocky in his yellow shirt and red shorts. And he is to, of course, go on and be watching the lake. We have a girl and Dougie, and they're talking here. And Dougie is to go on and state that there are monsters in the lake. And that there's no way that he's going to go on and go into the water because he wants to feel that if he gets into the water, he won't be safe. So we, of course, have the girl that goes on to mention, like, well, hey, man, you don't have to worry about monsters. We have the Power Rangers. If anything, there's one right there, Rocky. Hey. Oh, am I to be a little bit am I to reveal something to everybody? So the girl goes on and states that, hey, like, the Rangers won't let anything happen to us, so we're gonna be fine. But Dougie doesn't have that same optimism. So Bulk and Skull are going on, and they're overhearing what Dougie is saying here. And they're like, you know what? Dougie does have a point about the whole monsters in the water thing. Maybe we should try to go on and create some kind of monster in the water that could cause the Power Rangers to make their way here. So Dougie is having a conversation with Rocky. Rocky goes on to try to convince Dougie that there's no monsters in the water, that he has been here all of his life, he's never seen a monster in the water, for Dougie to not be weirded out by all this, but if anything, Dougie just has his opinions, and he has his fears, so, yeah, it's okay. Dougie, don't go into the water, man. I know you have your bathing suit on. What are you really doing here? Are you trying to tan? What are you trying to do? What are you trying to accomplish? If you want to make a beach castle, go on and make one. Trying to figure out what Dougie's doing instead of going into the water. I'm very confused. But anyways, is Doug just the guy that goes to the lake and complains about it? Is he that guy? Is he that guy? I'm so confused. What is Dougie there for? So Zed goes on and is to overhearing the conversation between both Rocky and Dougie. And so Zed is to say, oh, Red Ranger, you've never gone on and seen underwater monsters before at the lake? Well, guess what? I'm going to go on and definitely make some underwater monsters for you. So Zed goes on and is to talk about how the tide is a turning. And Goldar's like, what? Zed, you and your metaphors, silence! You know what, if anything, also, Zed going on and saying the stuff that he does, and Goldar's and Babuin Squats are to go on and just consistently just kind of figure out a way to F that up. It is kind of weird because Goldar, Squat, and Babu, also the consistent disappearance of Finster and now Scorpina, have been very long gone for some reason. I don't quite get why. Because Scorpina just comes back just dead. Dead in the water. Underwater. Anyways, so... But Finster also was the voice of Zed, so... That is to be, I guess, a reason of why he's to simply be gone. But I think when we probably get Rita back, that will probably bring up some characters that have kind of been gone for a while. Anyways, so... Back with Zed here. So... Zed is going to have a plan of bringing back former underwater monsters. and hoping that if a group of monsters being sent out at the same time will have the monsters not being able to defeat said foes. So Rocky, Billy, and Aisha have now gone on in their swim gear and made their way to the lake. And Rocky goes on to explain to both Aisha and Billy that Dougie is to be a kid of stubborn nature that does not want to go on into the water because he is to, of course, fear monsters. Billy goes on and tells Rocky, it's like, you know what? Honestly, like, I had hesitation about going into the water myself when I was a young lad. So, if anything, Rocky, I think what Dougie is just kind of saying here is to just be kind of sound in a way. Like, if anything, like, let him just kind of be him. Yeah, he just likes to just make his way around the lake and tell everybody about his beliefs and just let that ship sail, Rocky. Come on, just let that ship sail. So the Rangers bring up the fact it's like, well, hey, yeah, like I guess the other Rangers at this point now are going scuba diving. Oh no, not the dreaded scuba diving. We had Rocky. We had Zach, Jason, and Trini going scuba diving before, and you know how that ended. They would end up not hearing their communicator go off. They would end up getting late to the action. And guess what happens with Adam, Tommy, and Kimberly? Same thing. Same thing. Sadly enough, that's what happens. So, back with Rocky, Aisha, and Billy here. We come to find that there seems to be some fins of some kind protruding out of the water. And immediately when I am to want to just go on and scream, Jaws! 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 Not of destruction, just Jaws! Maybe that's where they got the thing from, Jaws? Anyways, so Billy and Rocky scramble to the jet ski, flying their way onto the water to try to get to where this shark could possibly be. Once they go on and they make it to said where shark is to be, they come to find out that it's just both Bulk and Skull wearing shark helmets. Having, of course, Rocky and Billy just very disappointed from Bulk and Skull. Realizing that these people are to go on and spend so much time on these two fooling around instead of actually saving people who are to go on and actually need it. So, Rocky and Billy go on and they get back onto shore, and Rocky goes on to tell Dougie, hey, yeah, like, if you were to think that there was possibly a monster there, it's fake. It's not, it wasn't real. It was a hoax. And so Billy goes on to like, well, yeah, like all this monster finding is getting me a little bit of an appetite. All this is worked up to a bit of an appetite. Yeah, whatever. Anyways, pushing on. So they now go on and they mention the scuba diving thing yet again, which then they cut to the Rangers and they're still scuba diving. So Zed and Goldar are having a bit of a chat here, and they realize that this is some prime time realization that since half of the Rangers are going to answer the call of Zordon and Alpha, that now is the time to strike to call out all these underwater monsters to take out half of the team, and then eventually when the other team does come, they'll wipe out the rest of them. That's their grandmaster plan. So the first monster, of course, they are to go on and call out is to be the slippery shark. I don't care if they call it the shark monster. That is bullshit. Slippery shark. Also, Slippery Shark's eyes are now glowing red. That seems a little weird. But if anything, Slippery Shark goes on and he pops in and out from the grass like he was in the prior episodes. The problem with that is once he had gone on to do that, that is to be the only special skill that we actually see him do. After that, it's back to just normal old, he's just a monster that's there. Sadly enough. So Alpha is to go on and be ay-ay-aying. Shark monster heading for the lake. Alpha, the Rangers. They need to be alerted. People are in great danger. Alert the others. Yeah, we get it. We get it. The creature must be stopped before it reaches the water. Sending now. So, Rocky ends up going on and answering the call. Alpha? What's going on? A terrible monster across the lake. You must stop it. Before it gets to the swimmers. Rocky goes on, I'm like, okay, I've heard the Alpha, right? So Rocky gets off his post, goes on and calls out for Steve. Coincidentally, Steve is to actually be the Rocky's actual name. Steve Cardenas. If I'm even saying that last name right, I might have butchered it. As I have to go on and say that. Because I probably said it in the other review. You can check that out. You can see my previous reaction of same episode, because I've gone on in some of these episodes I've done it in the past. Because eventually I've at some point done Mighty Morphin stuff. So you can check out prior reviews. Or you can just watch this episode and not hear any of this. Sadly enough. But it's just commentary. So Rocky is to go on to tell Steve that he is to leave because of an emergency. And there's a beach ball that ends up getting thrown at Rocky. Rocky is to give this beach ball to Billy, which Billy then gives the beach ball to Dougie. We're just hot potatoing this beach ball. So we have Rocky that goes on to explain to Aisha and Billy, hey, emergency, cat down Milky Way, let's leave. So Rocky goes on to explain to Dougie that Steve will kind of be taking over for duties right now. And they leave. Rocky goes on to explain to the rest of the Rangers the situation, that there's a monster that is coming from the other side of the lake. And they need to act fast. They transition to have Billy, Aisha, and Rocky to all appear on top of this little shack that normal lifeguards are to kind of man things on. So the Slippery Shark is to go on and face off against the Rangers. It is kind of interesting here how we have Aisha and we have Rocky, who have never gone on and faced the Slippery Shark in the past, are now facing him for the very first time. Rocky ends up going on and falling to the ground after facing off against Slippery Shark and realizing how tough he is. Like, well, yeah, you guys haven't faced Slippery Shark before, so you don't know the technique of it, which is really interesting, just kind of writing-wise. So, Slippery Shark goes on and like, hey, throwing the towel already? We're just getting started. So, the Power Rangers are not going to give up. So, if anything, Zed is like, man, all right, well, probably should go on and probably should maybe send more out there. Maybe we should probably just send, I don't know, Piranha Head and Goofish. All right. Sends them out. Staffs them out. Piranha's Head and Goofish appear. Billy goes on and says, more underwater weirdos. Aisha says they smell funny. And so now we get shoulder to shoulder. Power Rangers are like, all right, okay, like we're gonna have to figure this out. So Zed goes on like, you know what? Like 3 against 3, that's not quite good enough. Let's send out even the cruel crayfish, which isn't even the right name. It's Commander Crayfish. What is up with these names here? These people don't know who they're sending out. Maybe they're to go on and not really remember these monsters very well, and so the names are just whatever they need to be. I don't know. Feasibly, also when looking at this, it could honestly just be the subtitles of which that I'm reading at certain points. But regardless, if they're legitimately just saying shark monsters and cruel crayfishes, I'm just like, what the fuck in this episode? So Commander Crayfish appears here and faces off against the Rangers. We now have Aisha clutching to Billy's shoulder, saying, man, if this gets any worse, we're gonna be fish stew. Rocky goes on and gets quite whipped against these monsters to the point where he desperately calls out to Alpha, hoping that there's going to be help coming soon or reinforcements. So Alpha and Zordon are talking to one another, and Alpha goes on to realize, like, wait, well, we need to talk to the other, we need to figure out how to communicate to the other Rangers. So we need to just kind of widen our scanners to try to get their communicators to go off. So, conveniently at the perfect time, Adam, Tommy, and Kimberly make their way out of the water and the communicators go off. Tommy answers it, and Alpha is to relay what exactly is going on. Tommy is like, all right, well, I guess since the rest of the Rangers need our help, it's Morphin time. The rest of the Rangers morph. They appear in front of Billy. Billy's like, oh, thank God. I'm glad you guys are here. So we go on and we start to have all the Rangers facing off against the monsters here. Tommy faces off against Slippery Shark. Rocky faces off against Piranha's Head. We, of course, at this point have Zed realizing that the numbers are not quite even right now. So Zed is like, well, now I need at this point to come up with the monster for these Rangers to face off against. So Zed uses his visor. I say that because it's not really his eyes, because honestly this thing that he kind of is to have on him is just a helmet. So for those of you that do not know because you haven't seen the comic books, yeah, this thing is just helmet that comes off of him. You see in the comics that if you actually read the comic books, you can see what actually Zed's real face looks like when helmet off. So that actually is a really interesting, cool visual. And so Zed goes on and sees the inner tube that both Bulk and Skull are swimming on. We would go on to have Goldar that is kind of questioning about the whole inner tube thing, but Zed is like, no, it's a good idea. And we have Baboon, we have Squad on the distance, and they're chiming in with, that's a totally tubular idea, yeah. Anyways, so Zed goes on, uses his wand, makes the inner tube disappear. Bulk and Skull for seconds are seemingly standing in shallow water and then fall over, and then they are to question how far away they are from shore and that they'll never make it. as they're in shallow water, they can stand. So once the tube monster immediately makes its way on to land, Zed whips out growing grenade, chucks it, makes tube monster gigantic. Alpha is going like, ay, 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 another monster on the loose, Sordon. What are we gonna do? Contact the Power Rangers and inform them of the latest development. Affirmative, Zordon. We go on to have Tommy answer the call. And so Tommy eventually goes on to decide that he's going to take all of these monsters on all on his own and have the rest of the Rangers take it upon themselves to, okay, get into the Megazord, take down the Tube Monster. So that's Tommy's plan. The Rangers don't go on and have any guff, don't debate it. They just do exactly what Tommy says and they leave. Even though Tommy is to be well outnumbered, Tommy figures out a way to outsmart all these monsters and take him and Saba and defeat all of them. I guess since all these monsters were prior monsters and Tommy is newer Ranger with, I guess, a skill set of powers, yeah, I guess that is to be, I guess, the more rational reason for Tommy to go on and be able to beat these monsters. Plus, he's Tommy. So, Thunder Megazord faces off against Tube Monster, and there is a bit of a punching thing going on here. The fight is kind of weak. If anything, if there could have been a time where this inner tube monster or this tube monster could have gone on and actually thrown a inner tube at the Thunder Megazord and forced it to just have its hands just not be able to move, and then they could have called for the Thunder Saber. The Thunder Saber could have, well, the Thunder Saber I think is at the Megazord's side, but still, you could have gotten away with it with could have tried some, either that or the Thunder Megazord could have gone on and gotten stuck, and then Tommy may have just called the Tiger Zord and could have had the Tiger Zord do something to free them. I don't know. I'm just thinking in my brain that there could be something more interesting here than what actually did happen, because immediately after this bit of kerfuffle here of a struggle between both Tube Monster and Thunder Megazord, we immediately go into Thunder Saber, Slice, and down we go for the count. Down goes Frasier. So, shortly thereafter that, we have the, okay, all right, everybody. So, looking at this cockpit sucks. I hate this cockpit. I can't wait for them to go on into the movie Zord, so at least I can stop looking at this cockpit. This cockpit sucks. When they go on and they start getting clapped and beaten around by these monsters, it is stupid how they keep flailing around the way they do. It looks so dumb. But yeah, because when I'm looking consistently at this cockpit, I'm just groaning about how it looks. But anyways, back with Tommy. Tommy is going on and facing off with these monsters with Saba at his hands. Saba goes on at one point to tell Tommy, now look to your left. So Tommy goes on and takes every single one of these monsters down with Saba. And Tommy goes on and mentions how sushi is his favorite food. Dino Thunder. There is one episode, and I think I said this in the other review, but I'll say this again here. Dino Thunder, there's an episode where Tommy goes on and he's sleeping and he's having nightmares. when he wakes up, he goes on and he mentions how he's like, man, I shouldn't have eaten that sushi. I don't know if that is to go on to be a thing that in my mind is to be connected to this somehow, or even it's been so long since seeing Dino Thunder, if that actually is the right line. But yeah, like we do have continuity from Tommy in certain seasons. So also, if you guys have never seen Dino Thunder, you're missing out. Dino Thunder is really good. I really, really enjoy Dino Thunder. Also, Dino Thunder actually does have, I feel, some unique episodes of ideas of what they do from episode to episode. And also, Trent, maybe as the White Ranger, doesn't maybe look all that great, but I am to go on and feel that what they try to do in that season visually is to go on and really be interesting and really cool looking. So check out Dino Thunder. Check out that Dino Thunder. You won't regret it. And you don't need to go on and see a prior season of anything of any kind. No, 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 no. You can go after you watched all of Mighty Morphin and probably maybe the In Space, whatever. Uh, Mighty Morphin, and then probably just Dino Thunder after that. Maybe you'll get interested in Zeo, but like it doesn't really matter. But yeah, Dino Thunder, very good, very good. Surprisingly good because Tommy had to definitely re-sign in the show, and they had to make the writing really good because they had realized how poorly the last season had gone on to be, so they kind of forced Tommy's hand into coming into the next show because the ratings were so poor. So like, hey man, Tommy, you need to come back. So yeah, and they ended up writing that show really well. So back with Zed. Zed goes on. I'm like, I can't believe it. He goes on to mention to Baboon Squad and Goldar or that he no longer wants to see another fish again. And he goes on then asks him, hey, what's for dinner? What's for lunch? And Goldar's like, well, trout a la Dine or a la Dean or something. And Zed is like, what did I just say? Like, I'm surrounded by ninnies. Like, how dare you give me fish? It's like, oh well, like, there's nothing we can do. So now we go on and we have Bulk and Skull and they're in the water. And they're trying to make it to shore. And they honestly could just stand up. Stand up. But yeah. Skull goes on and he ends up getting a cramp. Bulk grabs onto Skull's arm, hoping that he can try to figure out a way to just continue to swim. And they're too tired and they're too exhausted. Steve is going on and focusing on doing something with a girl off in the distance. So Dougie is to go on like, all right, this is my time to shine. Dougie goes on and ends up doing his Baywatch. I'll be ready. I'll be ready. And he ends up getting this life preserver or this inner tube. He grabs it and starts to paddle as best as he can to make his way to Bulk and Skull. Bulk and Skull get into the inner tube, and by that time, Steve goes on and is like, oh yeah. And so he swims as fast as he can to where Dougie is, and so Dougie and Steve go on and they try to bring Bulk and Skull back to a safe part to where they're back on land. Rocky gets back and is to go on and be like, hey, what happened here? Like, what? So Steve goes on and does the proper thing and mentions that, hey, Dougie had just saved these two guys from drowning. And Rocky, Billy, and Aisha are praising Dougie for it's like, man, you're a real hero. You did it. Like, you faced your fear. And Dougie's like, well, yeah, I guess there's not much monsters in the water after all. And so Rocky and Billy and Aisha are going on and telling Bulk and Skull, like, well, yeah, like, haven't you guys caused enough trouble for one day as Bulk is thrusting this fish from out of his swimsuit and he's to have it bite his finger and he flings it out? Bulk now is sharing the same distaste for fish as Zed is, as he used to say, I hate fish. And then they roll credits. We now go on to the last two-parter here, and I'm kind of freaking out. I hope I can go on and do this whole two-parter without a hitch. Because I'm just like, how am I going to mess this up now? How is this going to crap out? I'm kind of getting a little paranoid here, to where I'm honestly thinking that I may have to go on and shut this off, so that way I can keep this footage. But I'm hoping this is all, fingers crossed. So let's get into this. So, Strangers Back in Time, Part 1 and 2. So, we come to find that not only is the Red Dragon Zord, or the Red Dragon Thunder Zord, going in warrior mode, going to become a villain here, but we also have Photomare, who I may at some points confuse with Photo Frame. I don't know why, but I probably will. So if that happens, I apologize, but I mean Photomare. We also have, of course, multi-monsters here, which I think I've already gone on to explain, so I'm not going to explain again. But yeah, so, interesting bit of episode here. It starts off at Angel Grove High School. Mrs. Appleby goes on to explain to the class that she wants to have them come up in front of the class to have certain pictures of their past, so that way everybody is going to connect these certain photos with who the younger versions of themselves are. So eventually, when they do eventually see their younger selves, then connection is to be made of like, oh yeah, that is who the people are, if it doesn't exactly look like them. Especially Rocky. No, I've gone on to find out that the kid Rocky is to actually have a social media thing that I've gone on to see and watch certain videos and stuff like that. And come to find out, the guy who plays Kid Rocky was to have also played, I think, Colt in Three Ninjas, or whatever the movie of Three Ninjas was. So cool. Like, that's interesting bit of trivia for you there. Uh, but anyways, so it is kind of interesting. I go on and I always say here that since the passing of Jason David Frank has occurred, the only thing that I can think would be a thing that they could actually do is, since Kid Tommy has now grown up in a way, like, why not just go on and still, since we have a Tommy in some capacity, why can't this younger variation of him kind of be Tommy in some way? Whether it is to go on and actually be him doing, if they ever do like animated stuff or video game things, like, why not have him be the voice of Tommy? Like, I don't know that people would ever be okay with that being some live action thing, but that's the only thing that I can think of that would probably have a lot of people be fine with that, but then still a lot of people like, hey, it's not Jason David Frank, or a lot of people would probably go on and say it's like, no, that would ruin my childhood, or something of that nature, which is just like, come on, guys. Like, we all know at some point that all these Rangers are going to eventually replaced, and we also had that later movie that came out that basically replaced everybody except for Tommy, because of course we all know how that played out with the end credits scene with the calling Tommy Oliver calling Tommy, and he never appears. But we've gone on to even seeing once and always that there's always that loophole of like, well, hey, we can go on to have Rocky and Catherine, or we can go on and just have the guys just morphed. And yeah, that to me was just like, man, even that we don't have all the people in the thing. We don't have all the characters. So it's just not as like 100% just like what we all would have wanted, but at least we got something that was a good enough story at least. So if anything at this point, if they're gonna just re-chuck out Mighty Morphin again, because it seems that that's the laziness that they're gonna go into, like at least go on and give us actors that we know that we can trust will eventually uh, end up being the new uh, actors that'll be the best that they can eventually just kind of come back from time to time. I'm not having it be that like, oh yeah, all these characters need to be in a number of seasons like Tommy was or da da da. No, no, that doesn't make any sense. If anything, uh, it'd be nice to kind of have a number of seasons and then interchange their costumes and then replace them because feasibly, like, we can't have any of these rangers go on and be more important than any other, but whatever. Anyways, I said my piece. It's a waste of time, but because who knows what exactly we're going to get. And then the disappointment of us realizing, we're probably not going to get what we wanted. If anything, also, because I'm kind of at the end here. Uh, I am to eventually try still to get enough shirts and costumes together for every one of these different seasons. And I have like certain random bits of I obviously have SBD, I have Dino Thunder, I have a shirt for Power Rangers Zeo, so at least that will be covered. When it starts to get into anything after Zeo, like Lost Galaxies, and I'm trying to figure out something for In Space. Like, I think I could have something maybe for that. Uh, Turbo is going to be very iffy. I'm also kind of tempted in trying to like figure out some kind of something that could be like a catch-all. Because I at one point had like just a Mighty Morphin shirt that I kind of did as just a catch-all for when I wouldn't have shirts or costumes or anything for anything. Because that was a very rare amount of things for certain seasons. Because I used Photoshop for a while, but I'm like, I don't like that. Like, I want to do something that like actually has a shirt that covers the thing, and it's like I just felt guilty about it. So when I do this series review, I hope I will figure out how to way to get certain shirts for all these seasons, and that'll be all be a cover thing. But anyways, like I'm not telling or I'm not saying for anybody to fund that. I'm not going on and doing a GoFundMe specifically for no. Like I'm just trying to say that I hope that I'm going to plan well so that way I can get this all in my mind achieved. But then again, if it doesn't happen, then I'll just, as best as I can, just make some kind of thumbnails that connect with at least whatever the thing is. And then whenever I get the shirt way later, then I will have it as a thumbnail adjustment that I'll just have to do afterwards. And that's what I'll just do. But at least that's my plan, and at least I'm planning for something. I'm planning to continue to do this. But I've kind of already said this at some point, but regardless, I'm reiterating it of where the progress of all these shirts that I have. I'm planning on getting something for RPM, a shirt that I kind of kind of that I have to grind for. So that is going to be a thing that I have prepared already. Uh, there is an in space. There is two in space shirts that I'm kind of back and forthing of which one I'm going to end up getting. Uh, there's a Psycho red one. There's a just kind of Ranger one that has a black just kind of background. Yeah. So uh, all these things are going to actually be on Temu, Temu. If you search the word Sentai shirt, honestly, with how crappy that ads or that app's search engine is, especially if you're brand new to Temu, it'll take you a while to actually find the stuff that you actually want. But once you actually do get to start to find things that you actually are looking for, then uh, the prices will actually be pretty good, pretty reasonable. So you'll probably be able to go on and probably in one fell swoop find a good enough amount of shirts all in one shot. So, anyways, let's get back into this. So the Rangers all get up and one by one uh, showcase their photos. Aisha goes on and mentions this dance recital, and we would, of course, go on and have her mention her grandmother. Kimberly ends up stating how Aisha is so cute, and then Kimberly ends up going up next. Kimberly goes on and mentions how she had gone to do a gymnastics competition. She had lost there, but she realized that she wanted to be a good sport. And it actually helped her a lot, maybe build character. Zed goes on to be like, well, hot damn, another glorious day. Whose sunset shall witness the final destruction? The final destruction? That's kind of a reference to the finale of Power Rangers in Space. No, wait, it's Countdown to Destruction? Either way, I know that the destruction is there. So Zed is going on and using his visor, and it's to see Kimberly and her picture. And is to, of course, go on and have the idea about the taking the Rangers and turning them back to their childhoods, so that way they will go on and be powerless. And yeah, because for the Power Rangers, it seems that when the Power Rangers end up becoming young, it's not like Justin from Power Rangers Turbo. Justin went on and he morphed into a adult variation of himself. But that was later on in Turbo. In Mighty Morphin, it seems that the early morphers have some connection with molecular structure. So yeah, the Rangers can't morph in this show, but eventually they'll adjust the morphers and they'll be able to do it later. Because I guess that was a little catch in the early season. Because even when the Rangers do have their faculties about them and remember who they are, but they're kids, yeah, they can't morph because, again, the whole molecular structure thing. Anyways, so, but that's when the alien Rangers come in, and that's about the time where the actual Rangers are filming the actual Power Rangers movie. Yeah, so we get that going on, which eventually would you be like, oh, I'll just groan about it. Like I don't hate the Alien Rangers, but I'm just like, yeah, but like we're gonna have to deal with just a bunch of kid variations of these characters, and they have to get the Zeo crystals, and I know a lot of people have problems with that. But anyways, let's. I apologize for hugely tanging it off here. I tend to happen to have happen quite often. Anyways, we go on here and we are back with Tommy. Tommy is going on and talking about a day where he had gone on and gotten a trophy while in his karate gear. And learned about dedication and hard work. Billy had gone on to seemingly take apart his mother's entire vacuum. His mother had gotten upset with him, so Billy had to go on and try to put it together as quickly as he could. We would go on to have Rocky, who ends up having a picture about his dog Buster. Uh, he had learned responsibilities that day. Adam goes on and has a picture with him and his dad doing something with a car. Really showcasing that Adam was to have gone on and really liked to do things with his dad. So Bulk and Skull were to go on and have a picture that is to represent them meeting for the very first time and how they became fast friends. Bulk goes on and corrects Skull's story, but if anything, still, they became friends then. Zed in the background is going like, oh man, how adorable. We go on to, of course, have Goldar that is to state, hey, when you go on, you activate the Rock of Time. They won't be talking about their childhood, they'll be reliving it. And so Zed goes on and states, like, well, hey, there's no time like the present. Let's go on, let's use the staff to have the Rock of Time go on and activate so that way time can make its way backwards. This also goes on and reminds me of the Superman movie, where, of course, Superman goes on and is to realize that Lois is to die. So Superman is to be very upset. He's like, ah! And so he flies off into outer space and spins the Earth so much so that time goes backwards. And then Superman goes on and saves Lois, and then it seems that there's to be no problem with timeline or whichever. So, anyways, oh great, my phone is about to die, and I have no charger here. Great. Let me pause here for 1 second. Okay, so Zed goes on and is to state that as the Earth is to spin back in time, that Zord is to, or Zed is to go on and state, spin back to powerless past. So the clock starts to go backwards, and we would even go on to have Billy at some point recognize that the time is starting to go backwards and points it out to Miss Appleby. Miss Appleby goes on as like, well, hey, what should we do about this? And there's nothing that they really can do. Zed is to go on and state that in moments there wasn't much for him to go on and need to actually lift a finger to do, but he'll be able to defeat the Rangers regardless. We also get to a point where Goldar ends up telling Zed that maybe he should power up the Rock of Time more so that way the time goes backwards quicker. So Zed goes on and tells Golar that that actually is a pretty good idea, and so he gives in to it. Whipping out his staff, going on and sending out a more bit of lightning to power up the Rock of Time. The time goes by even so much more quicker. Alpha and Zordon are to be aware of what's going on, and so they realize that the Earth's rotation has got to obviously have something to do with Zed, and but they don't exactly know what he's doing. Zordon goes on and tells Alpha to check on the Rangers. They're in class during this time. What do you want them to do? Zordon ends up realizing that the problem is to seemingly occur of the rotating back of time that could probably cause a problem with Earth's rotation. So, as Zordon tells Alpha to check on the Rangers, Alpha looks in on them and realizes it seems that right now they are fine. But then we start to see that the Rangers have turned into younger variations of themselves, and Mrs. Appleby now goes on and has a much more amount of hair upon her head and looks differently. And we have Appleby that goes on to tell Kimberly to get up onto the chalkboard because she needs to solve this math puzzle. So she is to go on and be solving this math puzzle that it seems is to not be exactly what they had gone on to be doing prior. So if anything, yeah, this has really gone back in time to where they've gone on to do a completely different subject than what they're doing originally. So Kimberly goes on and solves the math puzzle, saying 30 going into 900 is 30. So Skull tries to go on and put a balloon on Kimberly's chair. As Kimberly goes on, makes her way back to her desk, the balloon falls over. Bulk and Skull, I believe, try to retrieve said balloon, and it backfires on them, and they end up getting hit with it. They end up getting sprayed. Eventually, also, Kimberly will get some on her dress, but definitely not as much as both Bulk and Skull will have the shaving cream all over them. Appleby goes on and is to be baffled and confused about why Bulk and Skull now have shaving cream all over themselves. Bulk and Skull eventually go on and explain that they had tried to put this balloon on Kimberly's chair, but eventually it ended up backfiring on them. So Mrs. Appleby goes on to have both Bulk and Skull go to Mr. Kaplan's office. Mr. Kaplan, yeah, that's been a while too since having to state that name. Like, it feels like it's so weird coming back to all this, but then also it feels too that it's been a while since hearing all these things and using all these things. So it's kind of rather interesting. And then class gets dismissed shortly thereafter that. So the rest of the Rangers go on and surround Kimberly here, asking if she's all right. It seems that she has ruined her outfit. Aisha goes on to explain that Aisha has a outfit for Kimberly to use, so it'll be fine. So Zordon and Alpha are talking here, and here's where I've probably to go on to definitely to remember that I've reviewed this in the past, because we would go on to have Zordon, who's to mention that Alpha should not go on and teleport the children to the command center, because if anything, the children will be frightened about being at the command center. I'm like, what's the difference between the children being there and the teenagers being there? Also, like, I think at some certain point in time, they've gone on to teleport any number of people via to the command center or this or that, whatever. So, yeah, how is it that the kids are to be terrified of being at the command center? But also, you would have Alpha that is to also appear in front of the kid. Like, how different? How much of a difference is that? Yeah, just whatever. So, Alpha and Zordon are trying to figure out exactly what device that they really need here to not only de-age the Rangers, but then also fix everything that is going on here. So Zordon comes up with the remote molecular descrambler. What a mouthful. So Alpha needs to go on and make this device. Honestly, you would think at this point that they would just be just having just devices just off to the side somewhere. Like, what are the, like, you would think that they would probably just have endless time to just make these random devices, but again, I think that's probably what most of the time Billy is there for. But anyways, Zordon's plan is for the Rangers to get back to normal with all their knowledge and power, so that way they will turn around and destroy the Rock of Time. And that is Zordon's master plan. So all the kids that go on and make their way to the park, because they go to the park quite often. Billy is going on and flying a kite here, and Adam and Billy are trying to fly a kite, and they're trying to figure it out. We have these oddballish parents that are seeing these kids in the park, and this is very weird. The husband and wife here, or maybe just man and woman here, they go on and they notice these kids and they say how adorable the kids are, and so they're taking pictures of them. Seemed kind of weird. Bulk and Skull go on and they scare both man and woman here, and the wife ends up thrusting her head into this trash can. I don't know why, but she does. The man ends up pulling the woman out of the trash can, and she ends up having things hanging off of her. And they go on to explain that Bulk and Skull kind of jumped out of nowhere, and the wife is very upset. Look at me, rude little beast. Here's where we go on and we have the Polaroid thing come into frame here, the Polaroid picture thing. The wife and husband, they were taking pictures of the Power Rangers, and so the Polaroid drops, so that's where eventually Zed is to come up with Photomare. Bulk and Skull eventually take the kite from Billy and Adam, and they try to fly it themselves. We have Aisha and we have Kimberly, who eventually will notice Bulk and Skull as the string of the kite starts to wrap around both Bulk and Skull. Kimberly goes on as ever the one to tease Skull for them to possibly end up together in some kind of bit of fantasy that people are going to have. And I would agree with that fantasy at some point. That, yeah, it makes a lot of sense for possibly Kimberly and Skull to probably end up together, but a lot of people would go on and maybe like the Matthew and Kimberly version better that happens in the comic books, or any number of other things. I've gone on to say this probably quite frequently in so many other things, but it's there. So, or for Kimberly to fall in love with some woman or some other alternate, I don't know. We've never gotten that closure, and also I don't think we ever will. Sadly enough. So again, Bulk and Skull are tied in the strings of this kite. Kimberly goes on and is to try to tease Skull, hey, how about a kiss? Bulk ends up telling Skull it's like, hey, don't go over there and don't try to kiss her because she'll have cooties. And Skull's like, well, hey, I like cooties. So Skull tries to make his way to Kimberly. Both Bulk and Skull fall over, and it's like, ha ha ha, we got to you guys. And we made a joke out of you because you've now fallen over. So shortly after this moment, we finally go on to have Zed, who's like, all right, Golar. Like, I've been more than amused. Like, all right, let's go on and let's send out a legion of putties to face off against now the kid Power Rangers. The Power Rangers without power. So, the next thing we see here is the Ranger team all playing dodgeball as Bulk and Skull are watching off in the distance. It seems that Skull is kind of interested in playing dodgeball as Bulk is like, well, that's a sissy game. Tommy is to go on and start throwing the ball as it seems that people are to kind of duck out of the way. Eventually, Rocky is to catch the ball, and further, we just continue to see this ball getting thrown around. The punny goes on and actually catches the dodgeball, and now we see a gaggle of putties here. We have the Rangers that are fairly confused here, and they're like, is this thing an alien? Like, what is this thing? Like, if anything, like, is he a good guy? Like, they're very confused at this point. So, and here's where we also have the putties that are ever so closely to the screen. At this point in time, we eventually start to see where I'd gotten this image from. It's because it happens during this point in time, and I thought that was funny to have a putty be a background image compared to so many of the other things that I've done in the past. Anyways, so the putties go on and scare Bulk and Skull underneath the table. Eventually, one of the Rangers takes the dodgeball and hands it to the putty, and the putty goes on and eventually attacks the Rangers. We have at one point there is a cameraman that has a putty handout, and all the Rangers try to avoid it as if it's playing tag with them. Billy ends up having a decision that maybe they should try to run. So the Rangers do try and run away from the putties. But what good does that really do? Not much. Eventually, the Rangers do go on and at some point figure out about the whole Z thing by mistake. As also, because Tommy figures it out, he goes on and he does combat them and try to fight them, and he throws the ball at them and it hits the Z, and then they disintegrate. So he's like, oh, hey guys, yeah, hit the Z. We're going back to that now. Because man, did they do that so often in the early parts of the Z putties, where it's like, hey guys, remember, hit the Z. Oh my god, we're back to that status quo. Oh my god. Oh yeah, so Bulk and Skull run away after being underneath the table and being scared by one of the putties. They mention a putty being the boogeyman, and so they run off. So once the Rangers start figuring out about the whole Z thing, the putties start to fall like butter or like whatever thing that falls, like Jenga, Uh, dominoes. Yeah, dominoes. Yeah, that's the right word. So the Rangers all start to throw the dodgeballs at the putties, and one by one, they all get the Z lit. They all are to be gaggled, one right next to all the others, as their Z's are all to be lit up, and then they disintegrate and they vanish. We get a Rocky and Tommy kind of like high five or something where they're just so happy that they've gone on to be able to beat said putties, and some of the Rangers are actually very exhausted and very tired after that whole bout. Alpha and Zordon are kind of watching on and realizing how lucky those little Rangers had become of still being able to figure out ways to beat these putties. And Zordon is like, well, hey, regardless of them going on and being whatever age they are, still, like, we have to go on and realize that they were chosen to be Power Rangers for a reason. So Zordon is to go on and ask Alpha about the status about the descrambler. And he's asking for that because, of course, they realize that uh, that like time is of the essence, and it'll only be a matter of time before Lord Zed ends up going on and getting upset for how the putties were to go on and be defeated. So he may go on and send out a monster next to go after the little Rangers. Alpha is going on and he's like, well, hey, I'm trying to do my best, Zordon. I'm going to try to get this working. So Zed goes on and he is at his palace. He goes on and says, it's impossible. They don't believe it. Those Ranger kids defeated my putties. They won't get away with this. Goldar goes on and says to Zed, hey, you should probably send him on a monster to finish them. And we would, of course, have Zed who's like, well, yeah, I need a monster that can freeze them in time. And he's like, I see a camera off in the distance. And that's when we get Photomare. Zed goes on, whips out his staff. The camera ends up becoming a monster, and boom goes the dynamite. Bulk and Skull end up continuing to follow the Little Rangers, and Tommy then turns to Sigourney like, well, hey, we all know that you're behind us. Like, why are you following us for? And Bulk and Skull are like, well, hey, we're trying to protect you. I think that the Little Rangers are honestly going to protect Bulk and Skull. Photomare appears, and since the Rangers are to see a photo monster, Aisha goes on to say, yeah, I don't think that this is going to be as similar as Class Picture Day. And so what ends up going on and happening here is Photomare does go on and take a picture of all the Rangers and develops it, and it falls onto the ground. Bulk and Skull to watch in horror as now their friends have turned into a photo. Alpha is going on at the command center, and uh, and I think gotten to a point where Alpha has gone on to still not quite get the descrambler quite yet done. Uh, but if anything, they are to find through the viewing globe. The Rangers are now in photo form, so Alpha is going to realize that Alpha needs to scramble to get this descrambler done, or otherwise the Rangers could quite possibly be lost forever. The next thing we see is Zed going on and realizing that, all right, like, this is excellent. Uh, the Rangers are now trapped in a photo. It really worked. Never will they hamper my evil deeds again. Because really all that Zed needs to do now is just obtain the photo, and yeah, there's no way that he can be beaten at this point. How sweet it is, victory! And then we get to the to be continued. So the following episode, this is part 2 now, and this is going to end up being a two-parter, then it's getting fused together because I accidentally had gone on to try to make my way back into this footage as after I paused it. Yeah, at some certain point it just shucks up. I'm like, man, I'm dealing with everything today. Every possible thing that could go wrong, it's going wrong in this video. So if anything, we're here to just do the best we can. So, anyways, I'm gonna finish this up best as I honestly can. Zed assumes that victory is to be his at last. We go on back to the command center with Alpha and Zordon, and Alpha is still needing to work on this scrambler, and Alpha is trying to get it to work as best as Alpha can. Alpha's going to realize that this is a disaster. Zordon ends up saying the Rangers' rescue depends on this device. There is no time to spare. Yeah, Zordon, Alpha freaking gets it. That's kind of the annoying thing of Zordon, that he has to continue to point out the obvious. And also, like, really with Alpha, like, it is kind of sad how, like, Zordon needs to so much rely on Alpha because he can't really do anything. It's true. Like, you would think that the best day of Alpha's life is when Zordon in the comic books actually does get a body. Because then Zordon can go on and do whatever he wants to. And Alpha be like, oh my god, thank god I don't have to do every single thing that this guy freaking wants. That he can just do his own self. Man, yeah, they give him a body in the comic books, but they never do that in the show. They always keep him in some tube just chilling somewhere, and then eventually in space they wipe him out. For those of you that haven't seen In Space yet, you should probably have to check that out, because eventually you get the whole conclusion of this character. If you've never seen the whole arc of that character, you need to see In Space. The finale of In Space is freaking amazing. And if you are to have never seen it, you're giving yourself a disservice. Because, yeah, if you honestly had only watched Mighty Morphin and that's it, because there's a lot of people out there that have just done that, you're missing out on a lot of good story, a lot of good episodes. But anyways, so in the early parts of also this two-parter, We also have Zordon, who's kind of going on and telling us what had happened in prior episode, in case somebody missed it. So this is kind of a lot of recap done by Zordon, because quite often, like when there is multi-parters, we end up having Zordon who needs to re-explain things, or I guess if there's to be like a commercial break, Zordon comes back in to have to re-explain things to the viewer. Because again, yeah, this show was not built as a streaming thing. It was built as a telly thing. So yeah, when you go and you watch Mighty Morphin, it's very drastically different than probably like stuff like Dino Fury or whatever, because of how it's built, about how the story's built. But anyways, I can go on and on about that, but it wouldn't matter. So because again, Zordon goes on and explains like, yeah, our only chance is to recover the photograph and use it as scrambler to return the Rangers. Yeah, we get it. We get it. Uh, because they're just being imprisoned in the photograph. So Bulk and Skull go on to obtain the photograph, and Photomare is to find out that Bulk and Skull had the photograph. The monster tries to go after him to try to retrieve the photo, as well as also Zed goes on and has Goldar retrieve the photo as well. So the next thing we see here is Bulk and Skull. They're running, and yeah, that thing was chasing after us. So Bulk and Skull continue to run, and they bump into Goldar. Bulk and Skull fall over, and now Goldar and Photomare are like, "Well, hey, just surrender the photo." And it seems that Bulk and Skull will not quite so easily do so. We are to go on and back with Zed. Uh, Zed goes on and is to state how the Power Rangers are now imprisoned in the photograph, and if he obtains it, that the Power Rangers will be locked away forever. Zed will have gone on and state that the entire universe shall be mine once it happens. Yeah. It's never going to happen, Zed. Just give it up. Just give it up. So, Babbo and Squatter in the background are like, well, hey, if he can get the universe, then maybe he can give us a box of cookies. Or maybe a box of donuts. Yes, yes. Box of donuts, box of cookies. Anyways, so, da, da, da. So Zed is going to be fairly upset about what is taking Goldar for so long. So Goldar or Zed goes on and is to look through his visor to see that Goldar is with Bulk and Skull, and Goldar is to be intimidating Bulk and Skull to give up the photograph. Zed goes on to tell Goldar, it's like, hey man, you're 7 feet tall. Get the photograph. It should be that easy. So back with Zordon and Alpha, finally Alpha has gone on to put together the molecular descrambler. And so Zordon goes on to tell Alpha, okay, now is the time. Like, you need to go on, you need to find yourself a way to teleport to the park, and you need to get that photo away from Goldar and Bulk and Skull. So Goldar is to again be with Bulk and Skull, demanding the photo, and finally we end up having Alpha appear here, going on to freeze both Goldar and both Photomare, who logically isn't even in frame anyways. Photomare is in a thing all on its own, and it makes no sense. I just don't quite get why Photomare is to be. It looks stupid. So Bulk and Skull run off, still with the photo. Alpha 5 has to chase them down. Bulk and Skull make their way into school, and they're met by Mr. Kaplan. Bulk and Skull try to explain to Mr. Kaplan what is to go on, how they're being chased by camera monsters and gold demons and all these things. Mr. Kaplan does not go on to believe either Bulk and Skull, pulls them into detention, and it's like, alright, so Bulk and Skull are now in detention. Alpha goes on to ask if he has seen either Bulk and Skull or something of those memes. Mr. Kaplan goes on and is to answer what Alpha 5 is to go on and ask him. And then Mr. Kaplan goes on and does kind of like this double take of like, what did I just say robot? So Bulk and Skull have now gone on to look at this photo and are drawing little mustaches under the Power Rangers' faces. As Bulk is to see what Skull is doing, Skull wants to take the picture from him and adjust it as well. Alpha 5 goes on and finally meets up with Bulk and Skull and is to try and tell them not to freak out, that all he needs is a picture from them, and then is to give them a device that has them sleep. Both Bulk and Skull sleep here, and we go on to have Alpha that takes the photo, have the Rangers go in to getting off the picture, the photo. We come to find that some of the Rangers have these black mustaches because of said photo. Alpha goes on to explain to the Rangers that they need to go back to their real ages and explain to them who they really are, that they're Power Rangers. Kimberly goes on and says how great that they are, that she is to find out that they're technically superheroes and this and that. So eventually Goldar and Photo Frame break away from their freezing device that Alpha had put them in and are to go on and try and make their way to get to the Power Rangers before it's too late, but it will end up being so. Alpha will go on and take all the Rangers and put them back to their normal ages once Alpha is to go on and get the descrambling device. So, once the Rangers get back to their proper ages, they end up morphing shortly thereafter. The Rangers go on and meet up with Photomare, and we come to find out that Photomare is taking a number of photos of a number of people, locking them all into these photos. We have the Rangers that are all to be out of frame of Monster and just kind of pointing and being in shock of the wreaking of havoc that this monster seemed to be doing. And eventually the Rangers are to go on and start pointing about, hey, there's Goldar here, there's Photo Frame. This is so stupid. We of course go on and have Zed, who is to whip out his growing grenade, chucks it, and of course Photo Frame becomes gigantic. We have Goldar coming into frame, and it seems that this is going to end up having, of course, yet again, to have Tommy face off against Goldar. But it seems that he's facing off not only Goldar but Putties, as we would come to find that Rocky's going to go into the Red Dragon Zord and have shifted into warrior mode to face off against Photomare. Photomare goes on and duplicates the Red Dragon in warrior mode, and then we turn around and have the Red Dragon Thunder Zord go into, of course, the full transition of Megazord, Thunder Megazord, and then it seems that it's not quite matching up between Red Dragon Thunder Zord against, of course, Thunder Megazord. So we have Tommy. He's facing off against all these putties. All the while, the rest of the Rangers are calling for their Zords and are to go on and become Thunder Megazord. Tommy goes on and is to face off against Goldar, and the most interesting part of this battle here is that Tommy figures out a way to get Goldar's sword away from him. And Goldar ends up telling Tommy, "I'll get you for that." And it's like, and Tommy says, "You'll never catch me." Like, who is Tommy, the gingerbread man? Tommy ends up stating to Goldar that he's far too slow, and he whips out Saba. The Thunder Megazord also whips out its definitive weapon, which is to be the Thunder Saber. The Thunder Megazord goes on and slices both Doppelganger as well as also Photomare, wiping them out simultaneously as Tommy is to, of course, take down Goldar yet again. And we would, of course, have Goldar that says, "This isn't over, wretched Ranger." Yeah, it's pretty much over. The episode is pretty much over. After the Rangers go on and they defeat said Photomare, they flip back into making their way next to Tommy, and it seems that now Goldar is to be outnumbered. So we realize here that the Rangers still have a problem because of the Rock of Time still going backwards. Zordon has to go on and tell the Rangers that they have to take down the Rock of Time. They have to destroy it, or otherwise time is going to have to keep going backwards, and it's going to really wreak havoc on the Earth. So the Rangers have to go on and they have to be jetting their way to the very specific location of the Rock of Time. We have Zed that sends both Goldar and Putties out to stop the Rangers, but Zed is going to send even more reinforcements out, which is a bunch of monsters. It is kind of the funny thing when the Rangers make their way to face off against just Goldar and the Putties. It's like, oh, I thought we're gonna have some real competition here, some real warriors. And Goldar is like, well, yeah, I am the greatest warrior of all time. I'm like, no, you're not. So, and a lot of people can find that debatable. But if anything, Goldar loses more than he wins. If anything, like actually Goldar escapes more than he does anything else. So first off, Zed goes on and he sends the Flytrap out. I'm not going to say the first name because I know I always butcher that. Then we get the Grimole out, the Grimole monster. I hope I'm saying that right. Dramole. Dramole is what I wanted to say there. Dramole ends up appearing from behind both Kimberly and Tommy here. Then, of course, we get the Oysterizer. Adam ends up bringing up the name of the Oysterizer. I don't quite remember whether or not how early the Oysterizer really was. If Adam, Rocky, and Aisha had faced off against that monster, but if they did, then yeah, I guess Adam seems to have a better memory than I do. So we go on here and have the Rangers the best they can try to take out the putties. We have Tommy trying to face off against Goldar as Aisha is to be kind of close near him, taking out some putties. Billy goes on and faces off against Oysterizer. We even get at a point where Aisha is fighting against Goldar. Adam is going against Oysterizer. Goldar takes out Aisha. Rocky falls to the ground. Kimberly is to be facing off, I think, against a putty. We eventually go on further to have the Rangers regroup, and then they whip out all of their weapons. The only ones that are to be left are Dramole, Flytrap, Goldar, Oysterizer. And so, as the Rangers whip out all their weapons, it seems that this is to be a more even match from the monsters. We have Kimberly that goes on and uses her bow and fires it off to take down Oysterizer. Adam and Billy end up taking down Dramole. Aisha and Tommy seem to be taking down Goldar. And it seems thereafter, we would of course have Goldar then ends up escaping. Tommy tells everybody that they did a good job, but it's time for them to focus on the Rock of Time. They end up getting the power cannon out, and they end up blasting away the Rock of Time. After that is to seemingly go on and occur here. We have Adam that says, "Man, they nailed that sucker," and they high five. Zed is to be glowing with rage. Another perfectly good plan ruined. Those Rangers really burn my biscuits. Yeah, biscuits. The next thing we see is the Rangers making their way back to what I would assume to be now detention, oddly. I don't know why they're in detention, but they're there. They would come to find that both Bulk and Skull are sleeping on their desks. Mr. Kaplan makes their way to Bulk and Skull, talking about an essay, and then all of a sudden doesn't remember the essay and is asking Bulk and Skull why they're even there for. And Bulk and Skull don't remember, so Mr. Kaplan is like, "Oh, well, I don't really remember either, so if anything, I'm just going to give you a discipline of writing on the chalkboard 100 times. Silence is golden, and I will abide by the rules." So Bulk and Skull make their way to the chalkboard to start writing this down. Kimberly goes on to state, like, I guess we have to say that Bulk and Skull have just been in detention since the second grade, and they laugh and they go into credits and they write ourselves off here. Thank you for going on and watching this. I'm going to get the heck out of here. I'm exhausted, and also I probably made this video way longer than it actually should have been. Yeah, tune in for hopefully me to still try to keep going into these. I unfortunately will probably go on because of my workout schedule and how strenuous it will be. I will be going on backing into kind of taking every other day off here, or it'll seem like every day off, but kind of the way of which my schedule is to be uploading, it may that seem like you might be missing out on a huge amount of things. But regardless, I'm going to try to take some time in between my workouts, but you'll still see consistent amount of uploads eventually happening. Because I know it's fairly confusing to understand my schedule because I'm kind of sporadically. Uh, there's sometimes when it takes a day or 2 days to upload, and then sometimes it seems to be happening like every day. It's just because of my workout schedule and also just physically how of feeling I am. If I'm tired, if I'm exhausted, and honestly, I am pretty exhausted right now. So I hope to be able to just get the heck out of here. Thank you. Bye, buddy. Bye, buddy.